It's time for a little Saturday Morning Funtime! Brought to you by Fuel Up Hydration System. Fuel Up helps keep you hydrated and energized throughout the day and relaxes you at night. Fuel Up is your 24-hour hydration system. Your show manager is Martin Acosta Santana and John Aaron Schmidt. And your producer is Bill Skywatcher. I'm your announcer, the Comic Relief Crusader. And now, your hosts, Tom and Gary.
It's not rocket science. Just say yes and we'll move on.
Tom's way down there. Let's put him up here. All right.
Hello, sir.
It is Saturday Morning Funtime.
Fart knocker.
And it is the weekend for Tom and Gerry, where we talk about favorite films. And films that really made us who we are. You know, films that we feel are special. And Tom and I feel that anytime a major film is going to be coming out, part of a franchise or something like that, that we should probably do one of their films. And we did that with Indiana Jones. And this week we're doing it with Mission Impossible because...
Well, there's a slight method to that madness also because I have to crash course my way through at least 4 of the Mission Impossible sequels that I haven't seen yet. Because Monday I'm going to see the new one. Now, I have seen the first one originally when it came out in theaters, which is what we're talking about today, obviously, not to jump ahead. But yeah, there's a method to our madness sometimes. Absolutely.
And you know, it's funny because once again, you can play 6 degrees of separation with Gary. I am 1 degree of separation from Mission Impossible cast and crew because my boss was in the movie. He played Frank Barnes, Dale Dye. I had spoke to him and Julia earlier this week, but he's sick as a dog with the flu. So he wanted to do a video for us talking about some of his favorite moments, but just too doggone sick. So everybody sent him some positive vibes and hope that he gets better because he is still down this weekend. But one thing that was brought up when I was talking to them is that there were more scenes with his character in that film that ended up on the cutting room floor. And it's too bad. But apparently some of them are on YouTube, and I'll probably pop those on later because Julia sent me a link on YouTube to check them out. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing about working for him is that you have that weird connection with all these different people, including, you know, I've officially worked for Tom Hanks, and that's really weird for me. I have trouble with that. You know, wrapping my brain around it. But it looks like Slasher Fred is here. War Monkey is here. Anima Confusa Love of My Life. Scribe Light is here. And Penny is here. So good afternoon. It's morning somewhere, so good morning.
Yeah. The big thing with that, I mean, obviously I don't have as much experience with that as you, but it's always strange when you finally meet someone in person who you've seen on like a big screen or whatnot, because it's like it's them but not them, because the image of them and the experience of watching them is nowhere near comparable to what it's actually like to actually meet the person, actually be dealing with them in flesh and blood. But your associations, your knowledge of them comes from all these images and everything else.
Well, and I will say this about Dale is I knew who he was before he was in Hollywood because he was the editor-in-chief of Soldier of Fortune magazine, a magazine that I and my father subscribed to back in the late 70s going into the 80s. And so when I saw his name mentioned in what was that movie called? In Invaders from Mars, was that it? It's a remake of a film that came out in like 1957, 1960. And
Mars Attacks?
No, I think it's Invaders from Mars is the name of it. It was a film that came out in between 57 and 60, and they remade it in the 80s. and it's not a bad film. I enjoyed it. Rob Bottin did the monsters for it, and it's one of those childhood nightmare movies where it's like it feels like a child's nightmare, which is the way the story unfolds. And Dale Dye is the military advisor for the film, but he's also in the film, and it was his first film. And when I saw that, I think it was in not Starlog, I think it was Fantasy Film Magazine, which is another magazine that was out in the 80s. We didn't have internet in the 80s. I mean, we did, but not like what we have today. It was through Texas, and all the schools were connected to it. And we could play games around the country with each other. And what's really funny, if your school couldn't afford monitors, you had dot matrix printers. Now imagine playing Lunar Lander via dot matrix, because they had to print each animation, and you're watching it and you're doing keystrokes because it's all in DOS. In fact, it might have been pre-DOS. What was it, John, before DOS?
Well, there was a variety of languages. CPM. There was. You're gonna make me think this early in the afternoon.
This early in the afternoon. It's afternoon. It's not morning.
So question, Gary, was he also a military advisor on Mission Impossible, or is he just brought in as an actor on this?
No, he's just in it. He's just in it. Tom really likes Dale Dye. That's why he made Dale Dye his dad in Night and Day. He is
nice of him.
He just really likes him and admires him. E. Clay Thomason's here. What's up, man? Good to see you. Read by Nature is here. I hope everybody's having a good Saturday. But Mission Impossible kind of was a surprise when we got the announcement that there was going to be this movie, and immediately, because there is, once again, a built-in fan base for that show. It had 2 runs on TV. The original run with the original TV cast lasted 7 seasons. And it's got a lot of drama behind the scenes with it by itself. Just crazy drama. Because Martin Landau and Barbara Bain were sort of the stars of the show. And after they did, how many seasons did they do? I think 5 seasons. Let me go look it up real quick.
Yeah, here's the thing is I vaguely remember the show, and I know going into this movie, Paramount had wanted to make a Mission Impossible movie for years.
Mm-hmm.
And when De Palma and Cruise came on board, Cruise, this is actually his first movie, I believe, through his production company, from my memory. And
no, it's the first movie he produced. Like Skydance is like 10 years old, which is production company. So
okay. So like this is his first movie produced anyway, or whatever. So like, because that was the thing is he didn't take any money up front. He normally would get like a $20 million payday or whatever at this point in his career. But he took all back end gross deal on this movie, and I'm sure he made bank off it.
Well, it's because of De Palma's friendship with Spielberg that he met with Cruise.
Well, and De Palma did this movie because for those who don't know anything about De Palma really, or you might know the surface level stuff, he was kind of the one of that USC mafia that decided he was just going to make commercial films. His whole thing was how commercial can I make it while also make. He was just trying to make Hitchcock films constantly. Well, he needed this at this point.
He considered himself an heir to Hitchcock.
Modern day Hitchcock, and
he worked
at this point in his career, he had kind of fallen off the map as far as like, I think he had a couple stinkers in a row, and he just wasn't as popular as he was, and he wanted to be able to get a budget for one of his movies again. So he really just did this, not so much for the payday, but to put it on his resume, right? So that he could get another couple of his movies funded at the end of the day, basically.
Well, even though the film was critically admired, the film he did with Dale Dye, Casualties of War, it kind of hurt his career because of.
I was gonna say that was like his last movie he did that really had a
the anti-war sentiment. He got overly political, and this is career suicide for people. So his chance to work with Cruise came about because, like I said, he was having a meeting with Spielberg. Cruise was. People don't know that their friendship goes back quite a ways.
Well, they're all part of the USC mafia, as we kind of call them. Or there's other names.
No, I'm talking
about
about Cruise. Cruise.
Cruise. Gotcha.
Cruise
okay. I'm sorry. I thought you meant Spielberg. Because I was going to say, the thing is De Palma and
and
Spielberg were the two guys out of that group that actually wanted to make commercial films. The rest of the guys wanted to go and do their own things and just got sucked up into it. Yeah, basically.
And they got that, Francis Ford Coppola created Zoetrope. We should do a show just about that, Tom.
That's kind of what I'm getting at, is that whole group that started through that. Yes,
absolutely. Because George Lucas was
which was how George met Marcia, for instance.
Filmmaker. He loved what he was doing. He put all of his money into Lucas, and then it ended up financially killing them.
It's because of THX 1138 lost him a 3-picture deal with Warner Brothers, and then he ended up having to pay Warner back for the movie as well.
It's crazy. And like I said, you and I should just do an entire show talking about that whole.
Yeah, because we got to get to this movie. But yeah, so basically, like, Paramount tried for years to get this movie done, and then the initial idea, because they did go into shooting without a finished script.
By the way,
the initial concept was to bring in the original cast and kill them off in the first scenes of the movie.
Yeah, but there's another driving force in there because once again, the screenwriters were brought in by De Palma. De Palma had these specific writers who had no love for Mission Impossible to write the screenplay for him. And his decision, I know his decision. I've never found proof of it, but I am 100% positive that it is, once again, his socialist leanings and his disdain for anything that was pro-America, anti-socialism, which Mission Impossible was. And so the decision was made by De Palma. I know it. And one day I'm going to find that proof to make Jim Phelps, who is the leader of the MIF, the Mission Impossible Force, or I'm sorry, IMF, Impossible Mission Force. And he was there for the entire run of the series except for one season, the first season. The actor who took the part realized, I can't handle this. And he found a way, using his religious beliefs, to get out of the show. He just couldn't handle the shooting schedule.
To put things into perspective, what they did is the equivalent of if they did the Star Wars sequel trilogy and Luke was the new Sith Lord and then Rey killed him.
Yep. And don't give any good reason for it.
Yeah. It's just like Luke suddenly is a Sith Lord.
Yeah. And it caused problems at the time because, once again, just like with Star Wars, Star Trek, all these things, these IPs, there was a built-in fan base. There was a living, breathing fan base for Mission Impossible. I don't know how big it was because it couldn't save the second attempt.
Well, here's where I would argue I wonder if there wasn't a fallout. I mean, the show was still in syndication to a point, but at this point when this movie came out, like, I only had a vague memory of the show being on syndication. And didn't they have like a revival in the 80s that was kind of short-lived as well?
Yeah, that was the Return of Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
Which Scribe brought that up. And I want to point out that we've had on this show twice Morrison, Jim, what is it? I'm sorry. Phil Morrison, who is Gregory Morrison's son, who is Collier's in the first series, all the way through from beginning to end of that series, and then returned for the second series. And his son, Philip, who Keith and I know, returned to play his son. He's his real son in real life, and he played his son on Mission Impossible 2 in the TV series. But they couldn't get they were syndicated, and the numbers just weren't there. They were screwing up left and right with shows like that.
Well, I was just going to say, I think the show had kind of fallen off of the of kind of the public lexicon or whatever you want to call it. Because
people didn't
at
know
this
where to
point,
watch it and when.
well, not just that. I mean, at this point, you had seen the movie, or the show being parodied, or the song being used all over the place to the point where it was kind of getting far enough away from where people didn't even realize it was the Mission Impossible theme anymore. It's just that theme that they used in comedies every time somebody was doing something sneaky.
My favorite was in Animal House.
Or in Wayne's World. Stop, guys, I fell on my keys. Ow, ow, ow.
But
that's what I'm saying. Like, at that point, it had kind of become distant. Because Script Doctor and I actually kind of got in a semi-argument about this the other day. Because I didn't bring up Mission Impossible as an example of, old franchises that can pass down the torch to a new generation. He invoked this as an example because I had said something about Tom Cruise and Top Gun 2. And he goes, well, he did the opposite with Mission Impossible, even though that's successful for him. But he killed off the original cast members, basically. It was like, well, it wasn't him. It was De Palma's idea or whatever. And at the end of the day, they couldn't get everybody back, so they just had Jim come back and have him be the villain. And again, I can totally understand a fan of the original show feeling betrayed by that.
And they did. They really did.
I totally understand that kind of a feeling. And I honestly checked out of this franchise after part 2. I just went to see the first movie. I barely remembered the TV show.
Very good.
And I saw the second one and I'm like, F this shit, I'm out. And I can almost guarantee you then by the time you get to the third one, which is when J.J. Abrams is involved, and that was after the separation at Paramount, because little do people know that it wasn't just Star Trek that had that separation thing. Any TV show that had a movie involvement, they had to go through the same kind of hoops. So it wasn't just Star Trek. It was Star Trek, Mission Impossible, The Odd Couple, pretty much any television show that had a movie counterpart or came from one or the other. CBS had them separated back then. But it didn't matter. And I think it's just ironic that J.J. Abrams was involved with the third Mission Impossible. Go figure.
It's the one thing I credit him for doing a good job with, because
regardless, it's like at that point is when they think they were separated. So they didn't even have to do this at this point, is my understanding, is what I was getting to. Like, this is just De Palma doing it just to do it.
Yeah, it's a quick money grab film, action, and he gets to kill off the characters. And I don't know if they knew there would be a franchise or not, because there were controversies when the film came out, and but it made enough money to warrant a second film. But the problem is with the second film, they John wooed it, and it just was terrible.
Yeah, that's my big issue with it. No, this film was one of those movies. This was one of those summer movies that I don't think anybody was real sure if it was going to be a big hit or not. Because I remember going into opening weekend and people were kind of like lukewarm to it at first. Like, there wasn't a real, you didn't have the internet and stuff to really kind of get a buzz.
Yeah,
right?
The internet was very small.
Like, you didn't, well, not to the sense where you had social media to where people were talking about it and stuff like
bulletin boards.
I didn't even know until my cousin and I went to see the movie in the theater that, oh my gosh, the theater's packed. It's like, wow, people were really wanting to see this movie, and we had a great time with it. And we're like, okay, so now we understand why, people are kind of getting into this thing. It was at that time, it was kind of, by the time, it had done its run, Independence Day had come in and crushed it for the summer, but it was a little decent film. I think it made what, $200-300 million when it was all said and done, which is not bad.
By the way, Tom, you can skip 3 and not really miss anything. The series almost like reboots itself with the 4th one, which was directed by Brad Bird. It's really where it actually, like, the modern version of Mission Impossible films starts with number 4. So you can just
I stand corrected. This movie actually made $457
million. Yeah, it's
$487
million. It was an $80 million budget.
With inflation, that'd be almost
over
like
$1 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it did really well. And I think they were trying to decide what to do, and they went in the wrong direction with John Woo. It just I hated the plot. The actors are really good.
I actually have a little bit of trivia for the Emilio Estevez cameo. What that was all about, Scribe Light, is Tom had done a cameo shot in Young Guns for Emilio. So this was Emilio paying him back. That's why he's uncredited. Yeah.
Wait, what?
They're buddies. Yeah. Yeah, Tom Cruise has a cameo in Young Guns.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And as a payback, he had him come in and kill him in the beginning of this movie.
Yeah.
That's why he's uncredited.
Because
Because Emilio did it for free. Yeah.
Holy shit! I didn't know that.
Emilio kills him in Young Guns.
What
Yeah, it's
scene?
a back and forth joke. It was that.
Yeah.
Which scene was it? Help me out, Steven. I can't remember now.
It was the shootout at the end, I think. Where there's like this big close up, and that's of this guy with this like handlebar mustache, and that's actually Cruz getting shot and falling back.
Yeah, he's on the horse. He's got longer hair and.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
I got to go back and watch that now. I never knew that. I love it when I learn something new. That's amazing.
He's got like. Yeah, here's the scene. I'll share it with you.
Because I really like Emilio as the hacker character. Like, of the people that killed off, he was the one that, when I watched this movie in 96, it's like, no! He's also the first one to get killed, so.
I was surprised to see him. That was my first thing. I was like, oh, Emilio Estevez. At first I was like, is that Emilio Estevez? And then it showed him again. I'm like, oh, it is Emilio Estevez.
He still has one of my favorite things when he's just showing off the thing and he shows off the gum and it's like, this, just don't chew it.
Yeah.
Now,
You got to
I do
remember,
wanna
this is
mention
when he
here-
was kind of setting to the point where he was going to retire too, because this was post Mighty Ducks and all that stuff.
I do feel that the characters in the movie were supposed to represent characters from the show. And I think that his character, Estevez's character, is supposed to be like Gregory Morrison's character.
Well, they were in the original script. That's what I was saying, is in the original script, all the characters in the beginning are original Mission Impossible act, and they wanted the actors to come back and they all refused because they didn't want themselves to get killed off on screen, and then add to that Jim Phelps being the actual villain from the whole movie.
Yeah, and I do know that Peter Graves was not happy over that.
Yeah, he would not. He refused to do it.
It's one thing, because I've always kind of poked fun at Adam West for being annoyed at the direction he went with Batman. I'm like, it's not like they're taking a shot at you. In this one, they took a shot at Jim Phelps by making him the villain. And so I feel like Peter Graves.
Well, it's kind of, if you actually as we get to the story here, you kind of see he's a villain of sorts, but it's also not they give him the excuses as far as where he's at in his career. He even says, the president used to answer to you and now he won't even take your phone call. Right. So again, I'm not justifying it, but I'm just saying in a version of the world, I can see where a character like that who's been powerful and all that kind of stuff for years and years and years, all of a sudden loses their power. They would pull something like this. And, the whole plot of the film is actually pretty simple, which is kind of surprising considering they went into this without a script, a full finished script anyway.
Yeah. And
because all they did was have De Palma had written out all the action sequences, and then he had his writers fill in the rest. Yeah,
because the whole thing was Tom Cruise wanted the train because he wanted to use the real train. And
that took 6 months to shoot on a 007 stage. It says here, yeah.
Yeah, he wanted that train in the movie. He wanted an action sequence with that, and so it was all supposed to build up to that. And they found a way of doing it. I thought. As far as plotting goes, I like the plot.
Yeah.
And I like the twist at the end.
Yeah,
but
the twist works.
Done something different than using the name Jim Phelps.
I think, and again, I'm not making excuses, but I think the fact that they have it be Jim is that you as the audience don't catch on right away that this is a setup by him, because otherwise it's real obvious. Right? Because even Tom Cruise is figuring out as he's talking to him, as we as the audience kind of already half-assed figure this shit out midway through. And I think the only thing that throws us off is if you are aware of Jim Phelps, and as a audience member, the other side of it is, it's played by, what's his face?
John Voight.
John Voight, who is a very likable actor. Right? So they have those two things throwing it off. If anything, the audience is thinking through, and this is my remembering at the time of watching the movie, originally in theaters, I was keyed in on that foreign chick, because she clearly was sus from the start.
Yeah, she was very suspicious.
So my whole thing was following her through the movie. I'm like, she's the one who's the bad. I thought he was dead. I didn't pick up on that shit until later on, right? And then once you see it, you're like, oh, well, obviously that's what this is. And then, because the old plot is centered around one thing and one thing only, and that is getting their hands on this knock list, basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I do like the fact that they kept certain elements from the show. A lot of people think that Mission Impossible was like a thinking man show. I said, no, they couldn't afford much. They had a very small budget on that show. And they had a specific theme for every show. Is that one, the team is absolutely agents of karma. That they are there to give retribution against somebody. And it's a heist show. Every episode's a heist of some kind. And they have to figure out how to fool people. I think one of my favorite episodes was where they had to trick a guy, a gangster, into believing that he's been in a coma for over a year. And that he now is in the future. That, they make all these fake commercials and have him in a hospital room. And it's so elaborate and it's so hokey, but they pull it off on the show. And a lot of the premises on the show were very hokey, but yet they pulled them off. And they had a great cast. You had Martin Landau and his wife, Barbara Bain, for 3 seasons. And then when he left, they brought in Leonard Nimoy to replace him, which he couldn't do. It's that weird connection between Landau and Nimoy, because Landau is also one of the first picks for Spock. And, and Nimoy lasted 2 seasons playing Paris, doing the exact same thing. And he was like, oh, no, this is just more Star Trek. It's going to typecast me. And he quit. But they had Sam Elliott step in at one point. Yeah, Leslie Ann Warren was a regular for a season. Sam Elliott didn't work at all. He did not fit in that show. If you ever watch those episodes, they were towards the latter part. They were trying to replace Peter Lupus, the big muscular guy. And Sam Elliott was their choice. And he's great in almost anything, but he has just nothing to offer on that show. And but it had a great following. It was a hit show all the way to the end. And then they brought it back in the 80s. But Paramount wanted to find a way to make it lucrative, and this was the direction he wanted to go, because they'd been wanting to make a movie for a while. And to get someone like Tom Cruise, really at the beginning of him becoming a superstar, because it's still early in his.
Not really. This is 96, so this is
Gun.
10 years after Top Gun. So yeah, he was pretty well established. But like I was saying, this is his first movie he produced himself, though, as far as like.
And that's what catapulted him into the stratosphere. He was a star, but this one made him a megastar, and it changed his life and his career and the trajectory he was going.
There's a reason he uses the music in his Scientology videos. Have you ever seen? It's hilarious.
Oh no, I just don't think I could stomach that. He's one of those.
I was just
guys.
going to say Scientology benefited greatly from these films.
Oh
yes.
my God. But from what I heard, by the way, we could go ahead and start the slideshow.
Yeah.
And because we open up on the classic scene of them pulling a heist on somebody, making them believe they're someplace when they're actually on a set.
Yeah. And didn't you bring up Rob Bottin earlier? Because I believe he does all the masks here for Tom
Yes,
Cruise,
he did.
if I'm not mistaken.
He designed the process and everything for this.
Yeah.
And it's really genius. It was an early stage of using virtual effects.
Yeah, there's CGI mixed with the latex masks.
Because they'd have the mask on, they'd be pulling it off, but they did a blending effect as they're pulling
and actually,
it off.
I could be wrong, but isn't this one of the first times they started using silicone instead of latex?
It was. No latex. It was all silicone.
Yeah, because that's also why they look so real. Yeah. But yeah, it's great. It's great how they work, because all the scenes that you see, even the end where you think it's Voight, it's actually Tom Cruise in a mask or whatever.
Yep.
As far as I remember. And yeah, so they did a really great job with all that business. And a couple of characters he kind of creates himself here, if you really think about it, that you don't see their counterparts to.
Well, he's a completely original character who's kind of like a combination of all the main characters in the series, where he's able to do a lot of different things. And because he's an expert in areas, but he also knows how to do his team building. And they really did a good job of building a team for this show, but they didn't take advantage of it until J.J. Abrams stepped in. And J.J., for all the shit that I give him, I think he single-handedly saved the franchise. And I don't like him. I really
I was
don't.
about to say, where's Gary and what have you done with him?
I don't like him, but God damn it, I have to give him credit. He started the world building for this franchise. And they went back to having a universe with starting with the third film. And Philip Seymour Hoffman's really good in that role. I do like this scene with Jim Phelps and lighting up a cigarette right when the tape self-destructs. They did change the order of things. They're following the order in the movie from the latter episodes of the first run of Mission Impossible, because originally every episode began with Jim Phelps finding the tape left for him someplace. And then we would begin the story, him building the team and then the story. Later on, as they got to about season 5, they began doing meet the villain, Jim Phelps getting his tape, build the team, and so on. And in this one, it still plays on the Cold War stuff, because we're still fresh out of the ending of the Cold War. And so, but espionage is always going to be the mainstay for every government.
Which was hilarious, because when I was just on over on the Salty Nerd podcast, they were talking about how, Tom Cruise can make these great Mission Impossible movies without making them political and stuff. I said, yes, that's right. He's good at making political thrillers without making them political.
Well, I think what's important is
ironically, it's true. I mean,
it is. It's ironically true, because what he does is he makes political thrillers, but doesn't show his personal politics.
Yeah, it's not so much about the politics; it's just the political espionage and all that kind of business,
Yeah.
and the bureaucratic bullshit, the kind of standard stuff. And a lot of this stuff is so beyond our level anyway, as far as of understanding of how the government really works or whatever. Anyway, it's all fantasy. Like these fake organizations and spy organizations and stuff anyway. But yeah.
There is no IMF in real life. More importantly, there is no spy organization that works like the IMF. Spies are more like hired thugs in real life.
Yes.
If the IMF existed in real life, they would be fucking hated by the intelligence agencies. They would actively work to destroy them, because they would be getting in their way of their shady shit.
Exactly. By the way, does anybody remember back when they allowed smoking on airplanes?
Yeah.
I'm sure this is back when you used to be able to smoke in a delivery room, man.
I know, it's crazy.
We used to hand out cigars after the baby was born. It's like their first few breaths of air, nothing but a huff of fucking tobacco.
In fact,
they do.
Right when I came out of the womb,
the doctor even would get one, and you get this best one, remember?
Yeah, congratulations on the son. Here, you want to have a smoke? The baby's right here. It's okay. It's good for him. Opens the lungs up.
Grows hair on its chest. It's a girl. Ah, well, In 40 years from now, you'll be thanking me, because it's going to save you a bunch of medical bills.
When he's in the plane, though, the first shot you see of him, I do like that the credit for John Voight appears at the same time as him.
Small Time Republic. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. He is now... Look, he has embedded himself in most, if not all, of the franchises now, right? The major franchises: Star Wars, Star Trek, Mission Impossible.
He is the Phoebe Waller-Bridge of his time.
He really is. But again, I got to say, I got to give credit where credit's due. J.J. Abrams saved Mission Impossible.
Well, look, I'll give more credit probably to Tom Cruise, because I'm willing to bet JJ just went along with whatever Tom wanted to do. Here's probably what happened on part 2. John Woo probably came in and wooed Tom Cruise a little too much. You get what I'm saying? He probably trusted Woo a little too much, in a sense that, okay, I'm going to let this visionary guy take over this franchise and kind of put his spin on it. And it did work for the most part at the box office. It's just, people did not resonate and respond to it. So they took a little bit of a break. They came back with JJ. I'm sure Tom, and see, that's the thing we've learned about Tom Cruise, is he has, and this is more so what I was getting at with my original argument, that script and I kind of didn't see eye to eye necessarily on because of this movie, and that's neither here nor there. He does give a shit about how his image is, for better or worse. His concern is, what is this movie going to be? Is it going to be good? And he knows that a good movie makes him look good, right? He knows why people love, movies when they have certain stars, whether it's a Clint Eastwood or John Wayne movie. He knows what you want to see.
Yeah.
He's not dumb. It's
No,
like,
he's
I mean,
not.
I'm not a big Tom Cruise fan. In fact, I loathe most of his movies, and I think he's kind of he comes off like a douchebag in most of his movies. But guess what? I've never heard a bad story about him personally. Like, everybody I've ever heard of that's ever met him in person has had nothing but nice things about him. And that he's a very
I do
nice
have one Tom.
I know
individual.
Gail is very fond.
Please
of
go ahead.
Okay, this is secondhand, so I wasn't there, but a person who was there told me. When he met Paul Dini, the Batman the Animated Series Paul Dini, he's nuts. He thought the name was so hilarious. He just starts saying Paul Dini over and over again, running around the party with that going, Paul Dini, Paul Dini, Paul Dini, Paul Dini. I swear to God, that really happened.
I've heard he's like a big kid, basically. But
Yeah.
he's real serious when it comes to business, right?
Well, like what you saw on Oprah with the couch and everything, where he's kind of on screen, that's more like how he actually is, which is,
Well, and I can see that. That's how somebody has to be able to jump over a canyon, right? Like for a movie. I mean, this guy knows what he's doing. It's almost like he was bred to be a movie star. You know what I mean? And not only that, he's outside of the Scientology crap. That's the only thing that's kind of hanging over him. And look, I'm one of those type of people where I don't feel like Scientology is any weirder than any other religion. At the end of the day, you believe what you want to believe, whatever gets you through the night and doesn't make you kill people or do bad things to kids. That's all I give a shit about at the end of the day. So I don't like making fun of anybody's religion either way. But outside of that, what has he ever really had in his history? Nothing. He's never been busted for any drugs. He's never had any major infidelity. Yeah, he's had a few wives and a few kids, but who hasn't in Hollywood? I mean, I can't knock the guy. I can't say anything bad about him. That's the problem, right? Like, outside of his, even, the worst, I think, controversy he ever had was when he was talking about the whole thing with Brooke Shields and the medications or whatever. And that was kind of one of the times where his Scientology was really showing. And I think somebody goes, dude, you need to chill the F out. And he did. He just kind of, and I think he even apologized to her, if I remember right.
Well, they're really good.
Even if I may have agreed with some of the things he said, but anyway.
Well, no, they're really good.
Before we go too far into this, I've been wanting to. I uploaded this to share with everybody because we're talking about the intensity, and this is one of those things right here in the second Mission Impossible film was the knife to the eye scene.
Oh yeah,
and they thought it was CG. And it's like, no, it was a tethered blade. It was tethered. And he told DeGray Scott, really put your heart into this. And I'm like, Tom Cruise is insane. I really do believe that he is really fucking crazy. Crazy like a fox in some ways. But I think that every single movie, he took years planning the specific stunt for that movie. Like Dubai, it was 10 years. He'd been planning to do that Dubai jump.
Oh, he's completely self-aware of how it. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I was getting at. Is like, dude knows exactly what he's doing, for better or worse, whatever you want to say. Like, I may not like him in most of his roles in his movies. Like, I can take or leave most of his stuff. Like, Rain Man is probably my favorite movie with him in it, to be honest with you, and that's because of.
I'm a hit or miss with some of his dramatic films.
Dustin Hoffman makes that movie, is my point. But like, Color Money's good. This is good. Top Gun is okay. To me personally, like, I get it. Some people are just way into it. Outside of that, I can pretty much take or leave any other Tom Cruise movie. I'm trying to think.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah, that was okay. And Jerry Maguire I enjoyed, but I haven't watched it in like 20 years, so I don't know how well it holds up.
It's still a good film. I watched it recently, and I'm like, you know what? That's still a good film. But like you, I'm not a fan of a lot of it. I could give a shit about Days of Thunder. I was not a fan. I don't give.
I like it.
Car racing, to be honest with you. I grew up around that, and
but it's not a movie I'm going to watch like every year.
Yeah, but I liked when I saw it. I liked Far and Away, but it's another film I'll probably never watch again. I got what I needed out of it. Tom Cruise can occasionally make a film, and for me, it's his work with Steven Spielberg I really liked. I love.
Minority Report was okay.
I like War of the Worlds. I like Minority
Uh.
Report. My problem with War of the Worlds is it went too far from the book, and I didn't like what it said at the end of the film.
Well, and Spielberg was a bit of a hypocrite with that movie. I don't know if people remember, but he said he would never make a movie where the aliens were the villains.
And he did. That's right.
And he did.
But
technically kind of twice if you count Crystal Skull,
but I loved Minority Report. I really, really liked that. I liked Oblivion.
Yeah, that's a good one.
His sci-fi is good. Oh shit! Look who's joining us. Our good mate Brian is here. I already added him.
Hey everybody!
Oh no!
Brian.
Well, if you got, there's only so much room for bald dudes on this panel. This freaking Scottish Canadian, whatever he is.
I'm not bald. I'm
diddly potatoes.
Yes, diddly potatoes.
The bald Highlander has spoken.
Oh my God, Emilio's still alive? We're not even that far into the movie yet?
Yeah, how far in are you?
Oh yeah, I do really love this shot where they like have the cutout.
We're 12 minutes into it.
Up.
All right, continue.
What's this link you shared, Tom?
What's what?
You shared a link on YouTube.
Oh, that's the scene with Tom Cruise.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Young Guns.
Okay, cool.
That's just for whatever. I shared it in the chat, too.
It was pretty neat that the movie wasn't afraid to kill off a whole bunch of people early on.
Oh, we were kind of talking about that, yeah.
Point for De Palma. Because he's a socialist, and he hated Mission Impossible. He hated any successful America.
You know what? Brian De Palma is a more successful Rian Johnson.
It's true.
Yeah.
He killed his career, though, in the 2000s when he made that movie Redacted, which was, again, another anti-war film.
Yeah.
And it tanked. It made thousands at the box office.
See, I think Brian De Palma works best when he's just kind of a pervert. I mean, the opening of Femme Fatale.
Well, when he focuses on being a Hitchcockian.
Yeah.
Making a thriller. But the minute he starts getting into his politics, he gets lost in the weeds of how to tell a story. And he's disconnected from his audience. He's really good at connecting with the audience with his thrillers, but then he'll do something and disconnects, and then he gets the Scarlet Letter, And
I do also like that for the twist that they do with there being the other team. If you're paying attention, you actually can notice things that tell you that before it actually gets revealed.
Yeah.
That was the fun part of the movie for me, was catching all of this stuff that's going on in the background and noticing that this other team is there. I really got a kick out of that.
Yeah, and I like what's her name, Kristen Thomas, that she's doing the scene with him there. Back in the day, I had a thing for her. She is just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was like so angry. She's dead. But this is the movie that established Tom Cruise running.
Yep, he does that a lot in the beginning. It's actually kind of weird in that this is a more subdued, down-to-earth movie, and then at the end is where Mission Impossible, the film series, starts to go like over the top really bonkers.
It's a dark film.
Yeah.
Because there's he realizes that he's been gaslit. And that moment where he starts to piece everything together when he's looking at the book of Job, and he's starting to realize this whole thing's I've been gaslit.
Oh, it's even worse because he's been set up and then set up again. He's been betrayed by everyone after this opening scene.
And they bring back, by the way, in the new film, Kitchener is back. And I don't know if he's a bad guy. He looks like a bad guy, but that could be misleading.
Well, they did that with this as well, because he's basically such a dick to him, but he's such a dick to him because he thinks he just betrayed his country and murdered a bunch of his fellow agents. So it's like his response is understandable, but you're in Tom's shoes, so it's just, and especially helps they have the tilted and the lower shots, so it's this it's this feeling of discordance that's going on the entire time, which puts you in the character's shoes.
Well, and that's where I'll give De Palma some credit here, because especially considering the movies we've watched in the last few years, the refreshing feeling of this movie, even when I knew there was CGI compositing and some CGI elements, which is very few in the movie, it still felt so much more real than anything we see nowadays. Even the train sequence shot at the 007 stages in the UK looks like it was shot outside on a real train. Sure, the background's a little wonky at times, and sure, you can kind of see the lines here and there, but you know what? Compared to some of the crap I see now, I know Tom Cruise is there flipping around in front of a fan at least. It's...
And there's another one. You can see that the hand is at the wrong angle if you're really paying attention.
Yeah.
And this
I
is
noticed that
before
too, the
Google
second
Glass,
watch,
by the way.
That's another thing I thought that was kind of neat about this movie, is just some of the technology that was clearly made up then in like a sci-fi bend to it, now is actual legit stuff we use on a daily basis.
Yep.
I mean, almost all of this movie at the time, I'm sure I went, well, that's bullshit. You can't do that. That's clearly bullshit. There's nothing like that. 90% of this stuff, watching it last night, I'm like, holy crap. We can do most of this stuff now. Hell, most of us can do some of this stuff from our own home computers or our phones.
Sci-fi anymore. By the way, I've neglected our audience.
Sorry about that.
No, it's me. So E. Clay Thomason is here. Read by Nature. Peter Vinkman Fansite is here. FKH.
We're getting close to a break too, I noticed.
No break. No breaks.
No break today?
Yeah. I'll explain after the show.
All right.
Tim is here. Tim. Monkey Jibbas. Hello. Thank you. Come again. Glenn Fleming is here. Good mate from England. Keely Chow. Andre Enrico. Small Time Republic. Our very good friend Zax, a.k.a. Kyle. Andy Morrow. And let me, I have to do this. Is it here? Nope, it's not. I'm not going to worry about it. I don't have the Fuck You Kyle video available in this studio. So, oh well. So I have a clip from Renfield. The guy, the captain yells out, "Fuck you, Kyle." So getting back to it, Tom, to explain to you, the Great Experiment is over with KGRA for most of the shows. They are going to focus on our paranormal and military shows. And we're still working out a deal to broadcast on their Facebook page for the rest of the shows. But even though we got we're getting some really good numbers for them, they just felt it didn't fit the format. And so they want to keep the two shows, and they want to have me on a couple of other shows of theirs. But the rest of the shows are ours, which I like that idea, because now I can look for our own sponsors and, find a proper sponsor like you guys did. And who is it that Andre uses?
It's NordVPN, isn't it?
That's it, NordVPN.
No, we don't use NordVPN.
Oh, then who is it? I could have sworn
Surfshark.
Surfshark. I know it's a VPN.
Sorry.
Fucking Scotland.
I just thought Nord. Just because Andre, I thought Nord straight away.
Norway.
You racist.
I am.
Now, this is originally the scene where Dale was in the scene. And in fact, you discover that everybody in that restaurant is an agent, an operative. And you see Barnes is sitting over there.
Look who's breaching.
White hair. That shock of white hair is Dale Dye. And there's Kitchener. Is it Kitchener?
Kittredge.
Kittredge.
Look who's breaching. Gary. Penny.
Oh, Penny. Wow. My goodness. We ruined her. This is actually one of the big stunts for the film.
It's actually one of my favorites in the entire series. It's just something about the water tank blowing up and him running.
Yep, trying to outrun water.
What do you head fish?
I like it on Family Guy when he's running, and it's like, I wonder what Tom Cruise is thinking when he's running. And it shows Tom Cruise running, and you can't catch me, gay thoughts. He's having gay thoughts and you can't catch me.
The review that works for every Tom Cruise movie. Not gay enough.
Oh my. I saw, I think, I can't remember who said it in the chat, said that Will Smith said that Tom Cruise wanted to play hide and seek with him. And I'm like, I'm not sure how to take that. What does that mean?
It's only
Like,
gay if he's playing volleyball.
Benny is asking for her video.
I said play a video for her.
Oh, I didn't hear. Sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, we have no
Yeah.
no
'Cause we're in
backdoor
this
videos
video.
here.
I know. Just play a video for her.
Okay.
She wants Vox Machina, though. Damn it.
Yeah.
I love these down below
But
shots.
I have
man.
this for you.
So,
God, does he ever?
Tom Cruise really looks like he hasn't slept. His eyes, that redness, like in the bottom lid, it's not makeup. I'm like, how did they do that? What did he do to get his eyes that way?
Knowing him, he probably was up for that many hours. Just like, let's fucking shoot it, Brian.
Yeah, he takes method to a level that's scary. And this guy, by the way, is a Canadian actor. He is really good.
Yeah.
He did this movie, and he was in Clear and Present Danger as the villain. One of the villains.
Henry. I've never known how to pronounce that name.
Sersney?
How do you pronounce a Z in a name? Yeah, Sersney.
Yeah, I think it's Sersney.
Cerny.
Maybe it's silent.
Czerny, I think.
Czerny. It's very Slavic. I know that.
Yeah.
Good freaking actor. But
can never afford
that's it for his
vowels.
career. Mission Impossible and Clear and Present Danger. And then after that, he just didn't see him anymore. I'm like, damn.
What have they got against vowels?
He's in Ready or Not. I don't know if
I
you
don't know
saw
what that
that.
is. What is that?
The horror one?
Yeah.
Oh, you might like it, Gary. Bride has to play a game, and it turns out she's a sacrifice.
Oh, he is in that. No, I did see that. I watched a screener copy of that back before it came out. Look at him go. I outrun those fish.
He does. He can run over the water. He's so good.
The one thing I really like, De Palma and his DP do a wonderful job with the staging. That's a Hitchcockian shot right there.
Yeah.
A lot of overhead. Because when you shoot overhead, it puts the viewer off balance. It's meant to do that. That's why Hitchcock did it. He learned that little technique from him. Because he worked on Family Plot. That was his claim to fame, is that he worked with Hitchcock on Family Plot, his last movie, which is not a good film. Nobody remembers that movie.
I mean, how many directors have like a great last movie? I guess that's the good question.
Yeah, it's sad. You live past your abilities, and you try to and some directors will pull it off.
What was Tony Scott's last movie?
What was Tony Scott's last movie?
Because, mind you, I mean, that's not dying of old age, unfortunately for him. But, yeah.
Well, yeah.
It was one of the most shocking moments. It really was.
Actually, there's an even creepier thing with it, because if you ever saw the Hunger TV series, one of the episodes ends, and the basic plot of it is there's like some kind of demon inspires people, but the people, I think they go like nuts or commit suicide. And then the episode ends with her going to basically visit Tony Scott. Like basically he's going to be the next victim of this demonic entity.
Oh, that's scary. Yeah, I don't like that. But I never watched the series. In fact, I've never seen the film. Still haven't seen it. I just never felt, vampire films, if it gets a little too fruity for me, I won't watch it.
Yeah, no, the Hunger TV series was more of an anthology, and they had David Bowie introduce every episode in like the second season.
Oh, that's neat. I didn't know that. And I'm a big Bowie fan. I just never wanted to watch it.
Oh yeah, at the minimum, watch the premiere of the second season because that stars Bowie and as like a suicidal artist.
By the way, I do like one line out of this film in particular when Cruise confides in Jim Phelps how he figured it out. And Jim Phelps says, "Those damn Gideons."
They stamped it, didn't they?
The damn Bible.
I mean, there is a biblical undercurrent with the whole thing. I mean, literally the whole thing is he says at the end, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife.
Yep. I always felt like Tony Scott was the only director in his family, by the way. I think that Ridley is a good DP.
Sergio Leone, Once Upon a Time in America. I'm just looking up some last movies of directors.
Sergio went out on top.
He went out in a high. That was out in a high, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, Unstoppable is Tony Scott's last one. That
was his last one, yeah.
Yeah, not that great a film.
I like it.
It's a good film. It's a good film, but it's not that great. It's not a high for him.
So how you feel about, speaking of Cruise and last films, how you feel about, Stanley's last movie, Eyes Wide Shut?
Oh, I hated it. Yeah. I'm one of those people that didn't like it at all.
Yeah, I couldn't get into it either. It just it felt like a Cinemax movie with Shannon Tweed and Andrew Stevens dragged out for 3 hours.
It just
it was dull and pretentious.
It was pretentious. It creeped me out, some of these people, because clearly that young girl was underage, and that bugged me. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
Yes, shit like that is skeevy.
Andre, one of the things this movie does interesting is that they actually use Usenet, even though the UI for it is obviously way too advanced for what actually was.
Yeah, Blade Zone already existed when this movie came out. We'd been in existence, the Blade Runner fan club, for a whole year online.
You know what? I bet that's where Ethan was going before the mission. Like, maybe it was just, having fun. It's like, oh, Blade Runner fan site. That's cool.
Yeah, I wish it. We've been mentioned on BBC and stuff like that, but man, if we'd been mentioned in a movie, that'd been fucking cool. But no, the internet was still, in its early stages. The modern internet, it was still growing.
It didn't really start for me until like 98 or 99. That's when things really started.
Okay, I'm going to leave this studio and I'm going to take us over there because Zach's just earned that fucking video. So I'm sorry. I'll bring us back to this studio in a minute after I give him his fucking video.
I just saw
my God.
Hey, fuck you, Kyle.
You bastard.
True.
I think
give Penny her video for with Vox Machina.
Open your back door, baby. Loosen your hinges, I'll show you my key.
Kyle, you son of a bitch.
and as usual, my hopes that this wouldn't get ugly are sadly crushed.
Sadly crushed.
Destroyed. Yeah.
And I ain't even said shit for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, why
right?
is Tom so quiet? I'm just assuming
you guys lost me a while back. No, I've been just listening to this chaos ensue. Seriously, I should have went and.
I enjoy this banter, though. I don't know if you do, Tom. I enjoy it when
I don't even know what you guys are really even talking about anymore.
Neither do we.
All I know is
to be honest.
Somebody brought up Eyes Wide Shut and my brain stacked out.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I've been gone now for a while.
All right. But no, I do love this character coming up, Max. Max is a great, friendly antagonist.
Yeah, I'm kind of pissed because she's still alive. Why she wasn't still included, and they instead created her daughter.
They killed her off screen for some reason. I would have liked if she had been around.
I don't like that.
Well,
Maybe
she got
faked her death.
Max, she got busted in the end of this movie for one.
Yeah, and she probably went to prison for a long time, but I don't know. I just kind of wish they hadn't.
Well,
At this point,
it does say, "Do I have anything you want?" Surely I have
I
something.
imagine
True.
that they force her to be a double agent.
Informant of some type, yeah. Well, that's the thing is like,
Oh, look at her.
like Ethan's only using her to find to suss out the actual mole anyway. Really. And that's what I said. This movie is actually pretty cut and dry once you get to the end of it. I'm surprised it came out as cut and dry as it did, unless I'm missing something.
Because there was, I remember at the time, so many people trying to overcomplicate the plot of this movie. And go, no, people, it's simple. Here's the good guy. Here's the bad guy. Keep the computer disk away from the bad guy. It's not hard.
He's using it as bait.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's all kind of explained in that sleight of hand scene with Jean Reno, or however you say his name. Right? Yeah. When you realize, oh shit, he didn't have the actual disc. No, it's because this is the whole game here, right? Is people want this thing that has this knock list on it, and it doesn't really matter what's on the fucking disc. It's just a MacGuffin at that point. But the whole point is he's using that to suss out every single one of his enemies. That's kind of where he figures out Jean Reno is not working with him. He's already kind of had his suspicions about his that shady chick. I can't remember her name, that's in the group. Because also, like she points out, she brought that guy in, and then of course later on he recognizes the knife, and that all ties that together, and at this point, if the moment he realizes that Jim's still alive is when he puts everything together. And as the audience, we do too. It's like, it's pretty simple. He does play it through in his head. But like basically at that point, all the knock list is something to pull everybody out of hiding.
MacGuffin.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what it is really. It's just it's bringing all the main characters together in one place at the end, and then bringing out the bad guy, and he gets all the answers he needs basically.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that the only person he really trusts in the movie is Luther, the ex thief.
Luther.
Yeah, Luther.
There's Dale.
Well, and that's because he's been he was basically kind of not similarly, but he was also what do you call it? Unlisted or disavowed. That's the word I was trying to
Disavowed, yeah.
He was disavowed as well, but for doing something that Ethan kind of agreed with was kind of the implications I got. So he kind of had a trust for him in that sense too, and he knew. Because I think he also hired him was the other side of the point. Because she hired Jean Reno, he hired him. Remember, like, because she even apologizes for hiring him. Because, he's working with Jim the whole time.
Yeah, but that's why he's there in the first place. It's like, oh, we'll just get the
Exactly. It all makes sense once you get to the end. Like, and even then, like, once you start piecing it together. And that's where I think Steven's right. Some people tried to overcomplicate this plot. It's like, no, it's not The Sixth Sense. It's really freaking simple once you break it down. It's not too difficult to figure out. Like Kittredge didn't have a clue about any of the shit that was going on. He is a fucking moron. Okay? The fact that he's brought up is just it's a red herring for Ethan so that he can, manipulate Jim into finding out if Jim's really what he thinks he is or not.
Well, no, he did do one smart thing, the fake list. It being the mole hunt and the thing, but he's basically doesn't care about his own men dying.
No, but I'm talking about the fact where he says it was Kittredge all along or whatever. And it's like, no, Kittredge didn't know anything about this shit, right? Like Kittredge is just as in the dark as everybody else is at this point.
Yes, Sander Hammerslag, that is the one, the only Captain Dale Dye right there. That's why I paused it on that. I love that pic of him. I'm used to seeing him with a mustache, so this is one of his few films where he doesn't have a mustache.
I knew I kind of recognized him in the movie, yeah.
That is the guy I call boss. And he's somebody that I couldn't understand why they didn't bring him back, too.
I don't even know if Kittredge comes back in the second one. I have not watched the second, third, fourth, fifth one, sixth one.
He's in the first one and the new one.
I've seen the second one years ago.
Yeah, it surprised me when I saw him pop up in the trailer for the new one.
Oh, he is.
Oh my God, that's a long callback, that one.
Hey, are they going to actually do something with Anthony Hopkins? I mean, they introduced him in the second one, never did anything with him.
Yeah, that's the thing is that with the exception of dare I say his name, Alec Baldwin being in two of these movies, the IMF director is always a different guy in every movie.
Always a different guy. And they kill Baldwin off in the last film.
Yeah, and they killed Tom Wilkinson off too in the movie previous to that, Ghost Protocol.
Because you had Lawrence Fishburne too, and basically, you know, the one thing that he was trying to push for is a regular cast like the original series had, and finally they started doing it. But yeah, the whole Anthony Hopkins thing I thought was weird. I never really felt him as
kind of stunt casting at the time.
Yeah, it was.
Just to say Anthony Hopkins is in this movie.
So what you're saying is you don't want to be promoted. You don't want to be approved as the IMF director.
No,
death sentence.
It's like being the girlfriend of one of the family members on.
Unless your kid church is a death sentence, evidently.
Because if you dated a cast member or one of the characters in the show on Bonanza, you were going to die. Every woman died or went to prison in Bonanza. It's like,
funnily enough, Tom Cruise does not shoot a gun once in this movie.
No, he doesn't.
No.
He makes up for it later.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know so much about this movie, so I apologize, and I'll be completely 100% honest. I'm seriously just going through IMDb.
Well, I'll give you something that's really interesting for me as a true cinephile, is that the screenplay for this film, one of the main names attached to it is Robert Towne. And Robert Towne has so much work behind him. The guy, you know, I mean, cut his teeth on, you know, episodic TV of the 60s, okay? But then he was a consultant on Bonnie and Clyde. He worked on The New Centurions, one of my favorite police films. He worked uncredited on The Godfather, Jack Nicholson's The Last Detail. Then he wrote Chinatown. He created the characters, Chinatown. He wrote The Yakuza, Shampoo, Parallax View, The Missouri Breaks. These are all favorite films of mine. Marathon Man with Dustin Hoffman and Roy
Tarantino writes a lot about him in his cinema speculation.
I am such a fan. And Greystoke is one of my favorite offbeat films that he did. Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, with Christopher Lambert as Tarzan. Absolutely still one of my favorite Tarzan films ever made. Robert Towne is really good. He wrote The Two Jakes, but his relationship with Nicholson ended with that film because he didn't agree with what Nicholson did with the film, and they stopped being friends over it. But,
well, he had Tom Cruise to replace him.
Thank God.
This was kind of a nice change of pace for Ving Rhames too, because prior to this, you know, he's usually playing the thug,
the thug,
like Marcellus Wallace. I mean, in this movie and Out of Sight, which came out the same year, if I remember right, he plays a good guy, I believe, for the first, maybe not the first time, but in a major film anyway, in both films, and he does a great job in this, and especially Out of Sight. But yeah, this one I like because he is a very likable character, and I like that the character does come back in future installments too, because, you know, he's just Ving Rhames. He's one of those guys that you recognize right away. You recognize his voice, and it was nice to see him gravitate from just the heavens, like you're saying.
Oh, by the way, he originally was going to die in it, and they kind of complained to Tom. I was like, listen, brothers always die in these kind of movies.
Stop killing the black guys.
Yeah, stop killing the black guy. And it worked. And he got like 7 movies out of it. So
when he's a likable character.
Yeah.
He's in that inner circle with Ethan. And I gotta tell you, you know, the one thing I liked about Mission Impossible, even the TV series, I like the names. They always came up with cool names for the characters. And Ethan Hunt sounds like a Mission Impossible name. It has that Mission Impossible feel. This stunt was really cool. Yeah. I remember when it was done, when he goes in there, the way they did it.
This entire sequence became so famous, and it's been parodied so many times.
Oh, so many times. Of course, you do something like this in film, it's going to be parodied by somebody or parroted, copied.
Well, and I mean, this is kind of where you could tell the movie had really struck a nerve with the public, right? Like the stuff that, not just this scene, but there's a couple bits out of this movie that get kind of, you know, that were parodied and satirized over and over again after the movie came out. And this is just great scene, right? It's a viscerally a great scene. It works. It plays right into the Mission Impossible kind of themes and whatnot. So yeah, it's the basically the whole centerpiece of the movie, really.
I still love how Luther gives his bit of exposition, then he just responds, "Oh, don't worry, it gets worse."
It gets worse. You think it's bad? No, there's more. By the way, I want to welcome Sander Hammerslag here. Hope you're enjoying the show. Eclase Thompson says, I always get Ving Rhames mixed up with Michael Clark Duncan. You, sir, are a racist.
It's also, you can divide this film into 4 major sections very easily. There's the opening where it's the, everything goes wrong. And then there's him piecing everything together. Then this point, which is the heist. And then after that's done, we go immediately into the final reveal.
The climax, yeah.
Very well.
Yeah, it's a very well-paced film. I mean, that's where, De Palma shines through, like I said, through the cinematography, through his usage of being able to film things very suspensefully very well, his ability to kind of project things through using just not so much dialogue, but just visual cues, right? Like that's another thing De Palma was really good at, or is good at, or whatever you want to say, because he's still with us. But yeah.
And it's interesting because think about each of those 4 sections starts with an exposition scene.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
I'm waiting for the extended 4-part Netflix series.
Well, they didn't shoot shit like that back then. Probably most of what was shot for the movie is in the movie. I don't know if too many deleted scenes or anything like that. I mean, that's the thing is this movie's pretty. Yeah,
there are a few deleted scenes.
Yeah, but nothing of real significance is my point.
Oddly, the most cut scene is the restaurant scene, because originally they wanted you to see the entire restaurant was populated, because that's something you would see later with John Wick, that everybody in the room, and also Sherlock Holmes with Downey.
It's funny you brought that one up, because I did get a John Wicky vibe this time watching it. It's like, oh, okay, I guess John Wick did take a lot more influence from stuff like this too than I really kind of realized.
Yeah, because they do the same thing in the first Sherlock Holmes film with Downey, or the second one, I'm sorry, where what's her name goes to have dinner with Moriarty, and then you discover she's been poisoned, and everybody in the restaurant is an agent of his, and it's a packed restaurant. It's just, and they had that scene in this movie where the entire restaurant, patrons, everybody were on the team, and Barnes was in there, but they cut it all out. That's the one scene in the film that I'm aware of where they did some heavy cutting.
See, using John Wick as an example isn't really fair, because everybody in the John Wick universe is an assassin.
True to that.
So everybody's going to be an assassin in that restaurant.
Well, I'm actually talking about the Central Park scene.
Oh.
Where he's at the park, and then everybody's like walking around like it's a packed park, and then you discover every single person on camera is part of the team, and they leave. That's the scene I'm talking about. So.
Yeah, when are we going to get Keanu and Tom together?
Would they nullify each other?
Matter and antimatter meet. Just boom.
Just completely like it would go nuclear and destroy the world.
That could be like a Tango and Cash thing, I guess.
I
don't know if they'd have real good chemistry though, because they're not.
I think
I know that
I don't see that working.
By the way, I'm glad you brought that up, Tom. Stallone wanted to do it, and Kurt doesn't seem to want to, and that makes me sad, because I would love to see an older sequel.
By the way, do you think they named the character in Archer after this guy because they have the same name?
I don't know. That's a good question. Like, who's he named after?
Krieger.
Krieger.
Krieger's the crazy scientist guy in Archer.
Right.
Wilson in the John Renault's character here.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know.
It's a very German-sounding name, maybe.
I know that he's supposed to be from Hitler's DNA.
Yeah. Well, it's that, it's kind of a hint in the movie because the name means hunter, and literally the guy stabs people with knives like a hunter.
I'm looking up something specific right now because I don't remember who the DP on this film is. There it is, Stephen H. Burham.
Yeah, he was De Palma's usual DP.
Can I ask, does anybody know if Paula Wagner used to work with Tom Cruise and she produced...
Well, she's still listed as a
happened to
producer,
her?
but she walked away.
So she's nothing to do with him anymore, I don't think.
Yeah.
So I don't see her name on anything to do with Tom Cruise anymore. So.
Well, I think she's still listed as a producer because of ownership. It's sort of like after somebody gets fired from Sony, their name still ends up on a film.
You got to remember, she's probably 20 years older than what Tom was at the time. So Tom's... I think she's retired.
They didn't fill in. She just retired. Yeah, she's on the first three as a producer.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I know because I have an idea of who you're talking about. I think that's the case, Brian. Is that she's just that much older than him or whatever, and that
she seemed to do an awful lot of stuff with him in the early years.
Yeah, as far as I know, I don't think there was, unless somebody knows anything otherwise. Because I think it's just she's retired.
She did produce the Jack Reacher movies.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah. And I think
shit! By the way,
she might have her name on the TV show as well. I'm not sure.
I know Cruise is involved with it. De Palma did as good a job on Mission Impossible as he did Untouchables. I agree with you. Untouchables is actually my favorite Brian De Palma film of all time.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the symmetry of those two being old TV shows, and then I didn't even think about that.
Both inspired by TV shows. And I love that movie, by the way. And the soundtrack by
You're mucking with the G, pal.
Danny Elfman did the soundtrack to this. I forgot all about that.
Yeah, he did. And actually, Alan Silvestri started to do the soundtrack for this, but I don't know. I can't figure out why, but they fired him. And then he reworked what he did for this into Eraser, I guess is what it had said where I read. But
that's interesting.
Yeah, they brought in Elfman, but they actually have a couple members of U2 doing the theme song for the end credits, of course, the single version of the theme song.
Yeah, the dance mix version. And this
I actually don't hate it. It is one
I
of
don't either.
It was better than the one they had Metallica or whatever. Limp Bizkit, that's what it was. They had doing the sequel. I was like, what in the world are you thinking? Like, what the hell?
The thing that tripped a lot of us out, because I'm a musician. And I was in band, marching band, and all that shit. And that was beat into us is the really odd time signature for the Mission Impossible theme. And I think it's like 7, 8, some weird time signature. And they changed it to 4/4 for the movies. And it changes the feel of it. And even though it sounds like it, if you know anything about music and theory, you're just like really thrown off by that. It's like, oh, they completely.
Well, it has like a slower feel to it. And what it does then for that remix version, it kind of gives it that. I used to play it a lot when I DJ'd. Like the kids liked to dance to it back in the day. Believe it or not.
Because
I don't know if you could dance to the original version so much.
Or the original theme.
No, this one. Like that's what I'm saying. I don't know if you could dance to the original Mission Impossible.
No.
It's too fast. That's my point. Yeah.
You can't.
The only thing I think of whenever you mention Limp Bizkit is stop making stupid people famous.
Yeah. Aren't we all better that he's not making music anymore?
He went to make
because he's making movies now. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Do you remember that Fanatic movie with John Travolta that came out like 2 years ago? That was him.
Yeah. Oh, it was terrible. Oh, that was terrible. In The Untouchables, the police shootout scene where that is based off of Sergei Einstein.
The Potemkin.
Yeah. The battleship Potemkin. which is, proof again. This is something I've talked about, Tom. I don't know if you've ever heard me say this, that, you can make your damn woke movies and still make them good, because all Battleship Potemkin is communist propaganda, but it's an amazing fucking movie. That gave me nightmares for years, the step scene, as a kid when I saw it the first time. That scared the shit out of me.
The difference is, though, it's not pretending to be anything other than that, whereas propaganda hidden under the guise of something else is what we get all the time now. So, if they're going to do something, do it. If you're going to talk about something, talk about it. Don't subvert something else.
Yeah, Limp Bizkit. Oh. Who was it that had a big beef with him? Was it Eminem? Somebody had a big beef with him.
Maybe Eminem. Eminem had beef with
a
everyone.
Celebrity artist.
Yeah, because Eminem drops a lyric about him sleeping with Britney.
Oh, by the way, I love the way they keep wrapping the tension up. It's like he falls, you think it's gonna stop. It's like, no, there's a drop going on.
It's the layers of tension, because you've got this threat, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, now there's this threat. I love that. It's something De Palma's actually really good at, is laying films out like this. And this is a solid film. I would put this on my top 5 favorite De Palma films.
It's certainly in my top 10 Mission Impossible movies.
Shut up.
I'd love to see what your number 10 is.
I'll tell you in 5 years.
I'll tell you.
6 years.
And by the way,
no, it is a great movie. I do love this movie.
Big debacle as that is, Indy 5. It inspired Tom Cruise to open up and say, I want to keep making Mission Impossible films until I'm 80.
I do love this movie. I think he did a really great job. It really, it wasn't necessarily groundbreaking, but it was pretty neat for its time. Some of the stunts and I loved it. Still stands up today. It still looks good today, and that's almost 30 years on. Yeah,
the effects, everything stand up.
Yeah.
And once again, Tom brought this up earlier. Rob Bottin did the appliances, the synthetic faces that they use in the film. And Tom Cruise, not for 1 second did I think he was any of those characters. Not at all. Clearly he's also playing the politician. That way it's so easy for him to look like him when he does the makeup for him. Or, I'm sorry, he's a TV politics or news analysis personality, like the Layer Report.
Here's the sad part, though. This was a basic standard movie plot back in the day, but compared to what we tend to get now, this is like high art and intelligent writing.
By the way, De Palma has made his entire career using split screen diopters. Every single film he uses it.
You just say that to make yourself look smart, don't you?
Well, I brought it up because that was what you just saw there. When you see 2 characters in the foreground and then something in the background in focus. Fuck you, Brian.
You hate him because he has the same name as Brian De Palma.
Yeah.
And by the way, Jean Reno had just come off of playing Leon.
Yeah.
And I was already a fan of his since the 80s because he was in the movie The Big Blue, which I was a fan of that film. And I liked him. He was playing good guys, but he's played heavies before. In fact, he's kind of a bad guy in the first Le Film Nikita. And
is he a goodie or a baddie in Ronin? I can't remember. Is he a goodie or a baddie?
Guy in Ronin, because he's the only friend that De Niro's character has.
He's a good guy. Yeah.
He's a good guy. And I love that movie, by the way. And that film, by the way, is the first film allowed to use ammunition in blank guns in Paris. They had outlawed it with the attempted assassination of what's his name, the former prime minister,
Daguerre.
And they outlawed it in Paris. And so that was the first film.
Was that Frankenheimer's last film?
I don't know if it's the last one, but it was one of the last.
Because if it was, that was a great film to finish on.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
John Frankenheimer. God, I love his movies.
Hey, read by nature. Cruise is planning on going into space when Xenu gets here.
Right. And I guess this whole sleight of hand thing is all Tom. He did it all himself. It's none of it's trickery of any kind.
Yeah, he learned how to do sleight of hand. This is a thing that, once again, he takes method to a level that just blows my mind. He wants to master whatever it is he's going to do on screen. And it's like, I feel like somebody somewhere should have said, Tom, it's just acting. You don't have to actually master.
Well, and here's a great part too, where they actually take, just ancillary dialogue from earlier in the film. And it's like, oh yeah, if you were paying attention. And then this little moment here where he picks, this is the moment where Tom figures everything out pretty much.
Yep.
Right. But it just, from here on out, is him just proving it, basically.
He pieced it together. The way he looks right now tells you his reaction to her is, oh my God, she's part of it. I love this.
Well, and I think he kind of figured that out just because of how Jean Reno acted just in that last scene, in the last bit there, yeah.
Yeah, all of a sudden he's kind of buddy-like with him. It's like, what?
And I like this line, too, because he's like, if you wouldn't have done it if you knew what you're getting yourself into. Yeah.
Joe's in the chat. What's up, Joe?
Oh, yeah. Fun story with Tom learning things. You remember Tropic Thunder? He actually learned hip-hop dancing. Like, he took classes. He could do that shit at the end.
That shit was great, though.
Yeah.
That was so over the top. I lost my shit watching that.
They needed to do an entire movie of just that character.
They're trying to, anyway.
And you know what's really hard is with him, dealing with him, is I'm torn with Tom Cruise. And I'm sure some of you guys may echo this sentiment. He's batshit fucking crazy in his personal life. He really is. I think that there's something wrong with him. But at the same time, he turns that insanity into a passion. And his passion for delivering to his audience is something that just blows my freaking mind. That he loves the audience that much.
I'll also say something else. Personally, I think he would have had an even more lovely career if he had been a comedian. Like, I think he's a better comedian than he is a dramatic actor.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It just popped into my head thinking you saying that reminded me of what's his name that does the Barry series, the comedian from SNL.
Hader.
Yeah, Hader's like talking about the first time he met Cruise at the table read for Tropic Thunder, and he goes, "You." It's like, and then he does an impression in front of Cruise. And Cruise is like just losing his shit, applauding like he'd done a magic trick. It's like, all I did was I can do a voice. But his spot on impression of Cruise was hilarious. There he is again. Here we go. And, Tom, what do you think? Do you think that the reason he shows up is because of the fact that he's worried that Ethan's figuring it out? That he has to create this new extra layer to keep the ruse going?
Well, I was trying to remember because wasn't who was Job originally? Because isn't he Job?
He is Job.
That was the whole point, yeah. And he has to show up because he wants his money. That's the whole thing. He wants the money that he knows Tom Cruise is going to get for this deal. It's almost like he set Tom Cruise up to be the patsy or whatever, if worst came to worst. But otherwise, it's almost like he knew Tom or Ethan would actually do this to prove his innocence and basically do the job for him. Because he already knew that the first list was a fake, right?
Right.
So, and everybody knew that was involved with the deal. So I think I do feel like in a weird way that, because it does kind of work, that Jim is playing some 4D chess here, and it's like if I get one, it's fine, I win. But if I get both, it's payday, right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of this whole thing. So like, yeah, that's the way I took it after watching it last night. And again, it's been 20 years since I've seen the damn movie. So yeah, but here Tom Cruise is putting it all together. Anyway,
Yeah, he's saying one thing, but you're
basically every time he's seen Kittredge, he
thinking.
should have said "you," is what he's basically saying, and it's almost like he's saying it at that point. It's like the way he's directing it towards, Jim. But,
Yeah,
absolutely,
and he's still trying to give Chicky Poo the benefit of the doubt.
yeah.
It's like,
What
no,
it is-
he could have done that himself.
Well, I think
Yeah,
it
but
was is that it's greed because he walked away with that initial one for screwing over Max, but Ethan's going to get $6 million. He wants that bigger payday. That's
Exactly. Actually, I think it's
Could've
10, isn't it?
disappeared.
He's
10.
10. I was gonna say it's 10, isn't it? Just after the cut, it might be that, but yeah. Because she initially offers him 6, I think it was, but he wants 10. When Max makes the offer, I remember
that's
that.
right.
And I think he did that on purpose too, to also pull out Job out of hiding. Like that was the whole point, is if they knew there was a big payday on the line, kind of thing. And that's why he kept saying, "I want to meet Job," because he wants to see who set him up. But he already kind of knew. He just needs to prove it now. That's kind of what I was saying earlier with the whole thing, is he kind of already knows halfway through, but he's from this point forward, the whole thing isn't about getting the knock list. It's about proving his theory correct or wrong, basically, at that point. He's being a detective.
Yeah, it's a heist movie and a detective movie all in one.
He's kind of like running a real time, like it's like no different than when a cop gets a criminal in a suspect in an interrogation room, and you play different tactics with your lines of questioning.
Because he's not giving away what he actually believes.
That's my point. Yeah. So he's playing with each side, just trying to pull out what information he needs. He already has a good idea or grasp of what's going on, but now he just needs to prove it, is kind of what he's doing here. Yeah. It worked for me last night. I watched it again for the first time in a long time, and I'm like,
yeah,
wow.
I stuck it through, but I actually remember back in the 90s, some of my friends, man, because I worked for a magazine and I talked to a lot of people back then, and they were upset, and some people walked out of the movie.
I can understand fans of the original show. See, that's the thing. I was on the younger side, and me and my cousin are roughly the same age, so we both had fun with it. But back then, I didn't really even realize what they had done to the original characters. It wasn't until sometime later that I was like, oh, okay, so that's the same character.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
the
there's
original
fans of the
show.
film franchise that aren't even aware there was a TV series.
I wasn't precious about it. I liked the TV.
Right.
Yeah, I grew up watching
I
the
loved
TV
it too,
series,
but
but
I
I
still
didn't
liked the
care.
film.
I didn't care what they did. Yeah.
Yeah, I had
Well,
the divorce.
I thought it was tacky to do that, but I try to look at this as a different Jim Phelps.
What was Steven saying?
That's what I did. You have to separate them, because obviously the Peter Graves TV series Phelps would never in a million years have even considered doing something like this. But when you get this version of Phelps, the movie Phelps, we don't know this guy from Adam. John Voight can play a good guy. He can play evil. He can go either or. And that works into the film, I think. But yeah, I mean, I can completely understand how the fans of the original show felt. I completely get it. But if you divorce the two, you can get through the movie.
And there may have been quite a few of those fans, but I would find it hard to believe that there was multi-millions that cared that much. I think it's a small number of people that would have got upset by that.
Yeah, it's just this is an example where they actually succeeded with what they wanted to do with Star Wars.
I don't know if you noticed, Martin, but the tickers don't work. They're not working.
The what?
They're not animated. They're not scrolling. I'm trying to do something
Is
right
that
now.
the ticker or is that just the banner?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a ticker.
There it is. It was
That's
earlier.
working. That one's working.
It's
It
not working
was.
on
It
my
must have
screen.
went away. Now it's working. It's up now. It was down. I don't know if it got bumped or what.
Yeah, it's just I always love this because he gets the letter and it's literally like, we gotta get to the train now. Like he has no time.
Yeah. I think I missed the scene earlier where they were on the phones in the railway station. Wasn't that earlier?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was earlier.
Yeah, I've actually stood at those phones because at this time I worked in London a lot. I was in that railway station quite a lot. So, oh, that's where they filmed that bit of Mission Impossible. When people used public phones, of course.
It's even great because he
Public
gives him the
phones, what is
watch.
that?
I was in that railway station all the time.
Who? What did he say? I want to go back to that again. Nolan's trilogy, and that's a small number as well. Yeah, some people didn't like it because it was too realistic and not like Batman from the comics. I get it. Purists, man. But this was, all from the very beginning. Tom Cruise wanted the whole train that goes from England to France.
Channel tunnel.
Yeah, he wanted that in there. And he does that. And it's the thing that we've talked about previously on other shows about Cruise is like, he'll be planning a major stunt that will appear in a movie, and he'll have been working on it for like a decade. And I love the one with the Dubai thing where he said, I talked to this one stunt coordinator. He says, you can't do that. And so I fired him. Found another stunt coordinator. But she's a great actress. She has as negative a background as Jane Fonda.
Oh God, yeah, she's a real lefty.
Oh, she
revolutionary
almost
communist.
destroyed her career, her politics.
Yeah, and funnily enough, in her movies,
that's a red grave, right?
Often in her movies, that doesn't affect her roles that she plays. She'll play all sorts, but yeah, in her private life, very strong Marxist.
She looks like an older Enema.
Yeah,
she's gorgeous. Her sister, also a great actress, kept her mouth shut, never got into politics. Made some great films. Georgie Girl.
Oh yeah.
It's the Redgrave sisters. It's Vanessa Redgrave and what's the other sister's name? I forget.
Lynn Redgrave.
Lynn Redgrave.
Oh, they're a well-known acting family. Was it Michael Redgrave?
Yeah, the stage. Yeah.
And haven't they got offspring that are? Is it Jolie Richardson or somebody? I can't remember. One of these. There's certainly offspring or.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, a great actress.
You're right.
And some people whose careers didn't seem to go anywhere. Emmanuel Barrett, who plays the hot Jim Phelps' girlfriend. Her career never really went anywhere.
Some women just go by on their looks, and that's kind of all they are. When they start to fade, they don't have the other things they need to continue on.
I didn't know that, but Vanessa Redgrave is married to Franco Nero.
What?
According to IMDb, that can't be right.
Oh, get out of
no
here.
No way. Surely.
No. Somebody made that shit up and
put it in IMDb.
Weren't they in that Camelot film together?
Oh my God, they were.
Yeah,
because he played Lancelot.
I think they may well be married. Yeah.
Holy shit. Another guy that's in this film who's been in a lot of other films is Andreas Wesenwiski.
Oh yeah,
they are married.
He's the guy with the long, pretty hair.
Die Hard, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, he was in Die Hard. He was in The Living Daylights, one of my favorite Bond films. Guy was in a lot of stuff from the 80s on. He's in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, too. I remember him in that.
She's been married to Franco Nero since 2006.
That's right. And they do have they must have had a kid way back, like when they first met in the 60s or whatever. The 70s.
Yeah.
Because they've got
they made that movie in 68, 69, something like that.
So she must have had a child with him then. It's only much later they got married, though. because she was married to somebody else at some point.
Yeah, Richardson.
Yeah, that's right. Jolie Richardson's father. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd forgotten all about that they were married. If I even knew.
That's crazy.
Mm. Yeah, it's quite a
Did
big
they remake
acting
Baby
dynasty.
Jane? They did a remake of Baby Jane?
Yeah, it was a TV movie.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I like that film. Whatever happened to Baby Jane?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind Vanessa Redgrave. She's quite entitled to her opinions because she doesn't really ever let it interfere with her work. She'll play all sorts of roles in all sorts of projects, not a mention, or she doesn't try and make it influence that work. The acting is the acting. Her private life is, she can do what she wants, you know.
Yeah, the problem is, you get these people that get all bent out of shape because cancel culture has been around for a long time. People act like it's just a new thing. It's like, no, it just became bigger. Cancel culture has been around for a long time.
You'll never work in this town again. That phrase.
There you go. People just love to hate. And a person, I'm not going to say their name here, I'm friends with, posted something the other day about somebody. This woman did something crazy with blackface, okay? And it was recorded in 2010. And I'm like, this is just ridiculous. The pulling shit out of the past. People talk about how they are against cancel culture, and then they participate in it.
Yeah.
If it's something that they agree with, it's like, I stand against that. I don't want to be involved with any kind of cancel culture. Now, if I don't want to watch something, that's me, because of my personal beef. That's my choice. But I'm not going to tell other people to do it.
No, I only laugh when it's the people who have been canceling vehemently then get canceled, then just kind of
Well, that's what are you, Schadenfreude?
Yeah.
It's karma. They earned that one. That's different to me. Boy, I got to tell you, John Voight really looks like he's on the outside of a train there.
all the flapping. I love when the coat goes flying.
That is really cool.
Tom's hairline is tight there. That haircut's way too tight.
How did they pull that off? Because this is in a studio.
You just use a giant fan machine.
Because I don't even know if that was real.
They're just distorting their faces. There's no fan. It's acting. No.
I'm just training my face to do that.
It's actually really impressive how much CGI I realize there is, like, watching all these years later, because I didn't notice when I was like,
Well, it's mostly compositing, though. Like, I think the helicopter, some of the shots are, but like, I mean, that's Tom in front of a green screen.
Well, the explosions.
Because I just introduced Anima to Lost in Space from '98, and the CG is so bad in that movie. I still love the film.
Like I was gonna say, you can usually tell when they're using full-on CGI at this point, but compositing at this point was getting really good, and I think they still do a better job in these days, back in the days of film, than they do now.
They're still using the real helicopter, but like here in the tunnel, that's obviously
all CGI. But yeah.
But you see, one of the nice things about it's all artificial fake stuff. They're not trying to make like CG human beings.
That's what I should say. Yeah, it's actually more compositing than it is CGI. I should correct myself. Yeah.
Worst
that's kind of where
film, Tom,
go ahead.
You know what the worst line is? Red light, green light.
Oh yeah.
As the final statement by the hero. That's like green light.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, it's a nice little callback, but
yeah,
he could have been like, if it was Schwarzenegger, it would have been like, hey, you want some gum?
Stick around.
Yeah. Your breath stinks, here's some gum.
Chew on this.
Chinese. This party's gonna get off with a bang. Ah!
It's like, you want the green? Well, here's the red.
No, it don't work.
But Jean Reno is really good in this film.
Or better yet, I won't be back.
I won't be back.
And it's a fun case where, I love the thing where he's trying to murder him with the helicopter blades, and that's what ends up screwing him too.
Yeah.
If he could just stopped, he could just pulled back. Been rich, but no.
Get to the chopper.
Oh yeah, this whole scene here is literally the metaphor for the entire movie, which is Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt replacing Jim Phelps. Because Jim Phelps is above him, he goes up to his level, and then he outdoes him. And the Mission Impossible thing.
And we should hate this shit, to be honest. We so should.
We should what?
We should hate this shit. Like, I mean, Script Doctor's not wrong with he was just invoking it at the wrong time, was my point. But yeah. This is
What did Script say about it?
Well, because I was making the point that, because we were talking about the formula. I'm like, Indiana Jones is not a case where you hand off the reins to another generation, right? Yep. I said these have only worked so many times. It only worked in things like Cobra Kai, Ghostbusters, Top Gun 2 in a way, So there's only a few people who kind of understand these kind of characters and these kind of franchises. And I think I mentioned a few names, including Tom Cruise. Well, that's when Script was like, well, not Tom Cruise, because Mission Impossible literally does what we complain about all the time by killing the original characters to replace them with Ethan Hunt. And I'm like, you're not wrong, but at the same time, that's comparing Mission Impossible to Star Trek is even almost apples and oranges, because everybody knows Star Trek's characters. You ask, 10 people on the street, name, 3 or 4 people off of Star Trek.
Character's name in Mission Impossible?
Well, ask them, name a few characters from Mission Impossible. They probably wouldn't be able to name one. They'd be lucky to name an actor like Leonard Nimoy that happened to be on the show.
Exactly.
There's a big disconnect there, I think, compared to, and again, I'm not trying to make excuses for it, because watching the film, knowing that stuff this time out compared to the times I've seen it prior, I'm just kind of like, he's got a point. Because they do to Jim Phelps everything that we complain about that they do to Luke Skywalker and some of these other characters, Indiana Jones, whatnot, what have you, almost worse, by literally making him the villain. It's almost comparable, basically, to what they did to Patrick Stewart in the recent Charlie's Angels film. But nobody saw it, so nobody even knows what I'm talking about. Well, remember how he was the Charlie or whatever in the first 2 movies? Yeah, now they made him the bad guy in the more recent Charlie's Angel movie.
Charlie is the bad guy. That's
so
pathetic. I paused it here because I'm a big fan of this scene. I love Ving Rhames in it.
Yeah, that's just because you identify with Marcellus.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Marcellus Wallace.
Marcellus Wallace.
Does Marcellus Wallace look like a bitch?
That's Jerry empathizes.
You should say that, Tom.
It's the
whole you're trying to fuck him like a bitch, Brad.
It's the whole scene with the gimp is what gets me with him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there was rumors for the longest time that was actually Zabka, or was that him? Yeah, supposedly
William Zabka.
William Zabka is the gimp. Supposedly,
No way, no way.
That's gotta be bullshit.
No, I'm going. I've heard that the longest time because even I'm like,
the gimp is huge, man.
I put that right up there with Richard Gere. Actually, put
Stephen Hibbert played the gimp, according to Google.
And you know what? By the way, Tom, I'm glad I brought that up. The whole gerbil thing with Gere supposedly was started by Sly Stallone. Because Stallone got so fucking angry at him.
I could see that.
Because he wanted to beat his ass. He really did. He threatened to kick his ass. And then he told the production company, either Gere gets fired or I get fired. And they kept Stallone and they fired Gere. Because he got chili, I think, on his leather of his car when he told him not to eat in his car. And he had so much animus directed at him that what I read was that Stallone, as a joke, said that, and it grew from there. And I think it started in the 80s. that whole gerbils thing. Because I think I remember it back.
I don't know, because gerbils would, I mean, who would believe that? Hamsters maybe, but not gerbils.
Not yeah. Because he's a Buddhist. And Buddhists would never touch a gerbil.
I do love the end line for this whole conversation.
Vegetables, yes.
Well, this whole thing about, talking about his family in Virginia, and then what do we do next? And then he says something, and then the music starts. I love that.
I'm going to miss being disreputable. And then Ethan just says, like, don't worry, I'll always view you as disreputable. And they smile.
I'll always think of you that way.
And here it is. This is where he's on the plane, and the woman walks up and says the same thing to him that was said to Jim at the beginning.
Yep. I replaced the original main character. Now I'm the main character, bitch.
It is. It is literally what they did. They did what Kathleen Kennedy tried to do. Kill the past.
Look at me.
Except this time they did it properly and successfully.
I love that film. That's a lot of fun.
It is. It still stands up very well today. I mean, I've watched it multiple times in the last 30 years, and I would still watch it again.
I own all of them. I even have the second one because it's part of my OCD. I'm a completionist.
The bastard child of the franchise, yeah.
Yeah, it's so fucked up.
A shame.
I went to see that. I was in Atlanta. I was working in Atlanta, and I went to see it with my buddy Cristiano Prado, who talks like Arnold. He's from Brazil. And then I met him because I pictured in my head this little tiny, dark-haired, Peruvian-looking guy. And then we meet, and he's like 6'7", blonde-haired and blue-eyed, and he has that accent. And I looked at him, and these are the first words I said to him. I said, "There's some former Nazi in you, isn't there?"
And you were instantly attracted to him, weren't you?
Kiss them.
Look, we're friends, and you're saying that he is gay. But I loved hanging out with him. He was a really good coworker and a good friend. And he was one of my first friends to help me with the kidnapping when my daughter got kidnapped, and just really helped me get through it. Him and his spouse. But that dude was a major collector of anime action figures, and I think it's the first time I'd ever seen anybody that was like insane about collecting. An entire wall, a 20-foot wall covered with everything, including American animation stuff and cartoon stuff. That he had the entire collection of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from the 80s.
Gary at Neurotic would be like, those are rookie numbers, boy. You got to get those numbers
you gotta
up.
Pump those up. German in Brazil. Was he a boy in Brazil?
I love that movie, dude.
It's a great movie.
Gregory Peck and Sir Laurence Olivier. What's that?
It's a real shame about MI2 because Dougray Scott, having a Scot as the villain, a Scottish person as the villain was...
And he turned down another role to do that.
Yeah, I really hoped it would make it for him.
X-Men. Yeah. He turned down doing the X-Men. He was supposed to be Wolverine.
Yeah. Really hoped that he would have a bigger career than he did. But
I think that the plot and story was there. It just wasn't executed very well.
A bit sloppy and not put together very well.
MI2
dumb.
MI2 is an ego trip, basically, because it literally is. It's all about Tom and how awesome Tom is. And Ving Rhames is in it, and he sits in a van the entire movie and almost gets blown up. That's it.
Two's the one that had the motorcycle fight, right?
Yes.
Yeah, where he does a cherry picker on the front tire.
Yeah.
Isn't there one of the stunt characters is dead in it and then reappears later on? It's like the same guy's in it twice, even though he died earlier.
There really was a good moment in there that I still like to this day. That's where he's got the duct tape over that Aussie actor's mouth and then puts the mask over him. The trick. That was really fucking cool.
It had its moments, but it just didn't seem to be completely planned out properly and edited that well.
And Anthony Hopkins was completely wrong for that movie. They needed somebody else. He did not work in that film. What was something else? In the JJ film, in particular, there's one scene that really got to me. That's when he rescues that girl, and then the bomb goes off. in her head.
Yeah.
And when her eye goes cockeyed, that fucking was intense. And how they did that was really fucking cool. So the new film comes out this weekend, right?
It actually comes
the
out
12th.
the 10th.
Oh, the 12th.
Well, the 12th
Yeah.
is general release. There's lots of earlier showings. But
Yeah, I'm going to go see it Monday night.
I'm going to go on the 12th. I'll wait till the 12th.
Are you going to go see it, Tom?
Yeah, as I said in the opening, I've got to watch the next 5 movies over the next few days so I can go see it Monday night. I'm going to see the early screening, so.
What?
Yeah, I'm trying to get.
This will be the
Cyborg.
first Mission Impossible
Don't
I've
miss
seen in the theater
Cyborg.
since the first one.
You gotta miss
I might not be there for the whole thing there, Brian, because this took precedent.
You don't love me
unfortunately.
anymore, do you?
I love you, but Andre's like, if you can go see it early, go.
Yeah,
I might be there for the first early bit of the show, but yeah, I might have to take it off.
I really do enjoy 4 in part because 4 they lose constantly, like they fail throughout the entire movie and just barely manage to win out at the end. It's great.
I like plots like that in stories where it's it's hopeless. You're not going to be able to do it, and then they pull it off.
Should be a struggle. Yeah.
Andre Enrico says, Gary, could you take advantage of the release of Oppenheimer and do the next live on The Dark Knight?
I'm going to go see it Tuesday at 6 for the early.
I am not going to go see it. I'm a fan of his. I like Tenet. Because
I think it's going to blow up, this movie. It's really going to blow up.
Oh, shut up, Brian.
Would it be good or bad if Oppenheimer is a bomb?
He is the bomb. Didn't somebody do a Barbie Oppenheimer trailer mix or something?
I like that Barbie
or poster.
Nuclear war Barbie.
Come on, Opie, let's go, Nuki.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not a fan of Oppenheimer. I don't like him. I know that he was a soft communist.
He wanted to have his cake and eat it. He was quite happy to work on this shit. And then
like
after he achieved it,
complain
oh
that they
well,
did it.
I didn't really want it. Right.
Hindsight's 2020. Shut the fuck up. You did your job. Now go be obscure.
I have become Death Destroyer of Worlds, and I did it by working for the military on their nuclear bombs project.
That's right. Yeah, you could have stopped at any time.
He stole that from Inagata Davida, baby.
In the nuca da vida, honey.
It wouldn't be a destroyer of worlds anyway. It would be a destroyer of much of human life, but not necessarily of the entire planet. The planet could withstand it. It would just be a little bit hot for a while.
He thought he was going to nuke Glasgow. He was like, it might just be worth it.
That might be worth it, yes. Do the human race a favor. I'm just kidding.
No way. You're always serious, Brian.
As if I would ever want something horrible like that to happen to anybody. No, I don't want war. Who wants war? Nobody wants war.
War
is horrible.
What is it good for? Absolutely.
Absolutely nothing. No, you see it again.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind doing The Dark Knight. I've already got everything set up for next week, but I could do it down the line because I do like the Dark Knight trilogy.
Well, I don't even think the movie's open until the weekend after this one, right? Because this weekend is Mission Impossible.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about going to see. Is I was looking at tickets.
So I think he's talking about for our next weekend, which I don't think we have decided yet.
So do you think that they've made a major? Do you think they've made
but that's sort of I can push it off.
Yeah, we keep pushing poor RoboCop off.
Yeah, I was going to say what Joe's saying here. Do you think they've made a major mistake with 3 weeks of IMAX Oppenheimer and just a few days of it, like from a financial perspective, have theaters let themselves in for a loss there?
It's not theaters' fault that the studios have decided to release all these movies at the same time. Tom Cruise even kind of got into a tiff with all the makers, and then now he's on a makeup tour with them because he was fighting to keep IMAX screens for his movie. But look, it is what it is. People are going to go see
last year.
What was that?
Originally, it was supposed to be released last year.
Well, yeah, it did get delayed because of various reasons that I'm not going to get into here. But like, I think at the end of the day, whatever one has the most money, they'll keep on IMAX the most. I don't think Barbie is going to be an IMAX crowd. I think that's going to be a standard screen crowd. I think Mission Impossible and Oppenheimer are going to be the two that are going to be fighting it out for the big screen, and it all depends on how Oppenheimer is received, because Nolan is kind of a wild card. Most of his movies come out in the summer and they're weird, and they feel like they should be Oscar bait season movies. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out, because this feels like one of the more.
Yeah, does it have blockbuster written all
No,
over
it has one of the more Oscar baity feeling
It's
type of
possibly-
movies.
Wouldn't it be
I've
funny
ever done.
if
higher end,
tanks and they call it a bomb?
higher end art house.
Well,
More-
I was gonna say the
Palatable.
thing he's got going for him in this one is that he made it for under $100 million.
Yeah.
So it does not have to do a shit ton to be profitable, and Nolan on his own. And the idea that, he made this movie without any CG, they let him actually let off a freaking bomb to make this movie. I mean, at the end of the day, I think just the curiosity factor alone, and there's this little campaign going on right now where people are talking about going to see Oppenheimer and Barbie on the same day. If not, I see him as counter programming as perfectly, because the wifey and the girls can go see Oppenheimer, and Barbie and the guys can go see Oppenheimer.
No, you might
basically.
be right. You might be the other way around, maybe.
Well,
No,
all I
no,
can
no,
say
well.
is, isn't that how you get nuclear fission? Doing stuff like what?
I mean, it just could be one of those things where during the day everybody takes Barbie to the kids, and then at night the parents, dump the kids off at a babysitter and go back and see Oppenheimer. It could be one of those weekends. And maybe a weekend where everybody stays away and Barbie's the only one that has a shot. I mean, Mission Impossible might not even do as well as we're thinking it will. I think it will, just because the last few have done very, very well.
We're hoping it will.
Cruise
because,
is coming off of the height of Top Gun 2, so.
Interesting comment by Zach. I mean, I think to qualify for the Oscars, Oppenheimer would have had to cast Idris Elba as Oppenheimer.
I think
I don't know how
Check
those
boxes
Oscar
work.
things are going to be even more, because they fired their diversity officer over at the Oscars. So.
I must admit, I do like Cillian Murphy though, and I think he is a big Christopher Nolan collaborator, and it's good to see him get a big leading role. Like
Yeah,
that.
he was actually excited to be brought back.
Yeah,
in the third Batman.
Well, and to be fair, yeah, who cares? But like Eclay says, but at the same time, this is one of those strange summers, Eclay. And for us in this community, like news wise, it's a big deal. So I mean, I understand like you not giving a crap about this kind of stuff, but unless you just mean like Barbie or whatever,
There's a
what we
lot
watch.
of us
I have
who
no
care
idea what
about
you're
this
exactly
stuff.
saying. Who cares to or what to? But yeah, like it's just interesting because this will be one of the worst summers possibly since 1974, which says a lot
Wow.
box office wise.
Mm.
Then we just got 3 more years till we start getting really good movies again.
Because I think what we care about more than
Or
anything,
maybe
and
one.
I think you're included in this, Tom, is seeing cinema get back to being cinema.
Well, and I think that's why certain movies have done well, certain other ones have not. Even a movie that's kind of message laden is Sound of Freedom. I think the reason it's doing well and getting the traction it is for various reasons besides the political shit is that this is the kind of movie that Hollywood used to make that did have messages, and we expected them to have messages. And then you have the other side of it with movies like Mario that hit big. Well, they hit big because they didn't have a bunch of messages shoved into them, right? People know they want to go see a Mario movie or a superhero movie or a Mission Impossible movie and not have to worry about a bunch of messaging and modern bullshit being shoved into their movie. But if you want to see something that's going to make you think and get and emotionally get to you, we know we can go see those Saving Private Ryans or the Schindler's List or the Sound of Freedom type movies, right? There's a place for that stuff. They used to be separated. There used to be, and this is what bothers me with the whole thing with when Leslie Headland, former Weinstein assistant, was going out there talking about her Star Wars Acolyte series coming up. And she was like, I want a black writer and a black director from a black perspective. It's like, you know what? I know at least a half a dozen black writers and directors right now who would love to tell a black story from the black perspective, but y'all don't want to tell it because it's not a Star Wars movie. That's the difference.
Right.
That's the problem here. And I love when Tom Cruise and these kind of guys are coming out now with these kind of movies where all they want to do is entertain the audience. And Tom Cruise has been doing nothing but selling this movie on the idea that you are going to come to the theater and see me do some crazy shit. Like, that's kind of what he's been selling this week. He's been hanging on airplanes, jumping over caverns, you name it, like jumping out of planes and everything else. Like, he has done all kinds of crazy shit for this movie already, and it's gotten me to the point where I'm like, fuck it. I might as well go watch the other 5 movies that I've ignored all these years and get back on board with this, because, especially after watching this first movie again last night, I'm reminded of how good the first movie was and how movies used to make us feel and how excited we used to be. And even a movie like Mission Impossible, where I wasn't 100%, because this is another thing I didn't really bring up, even though I saw it opening night, my cousin picked it. I didn't want to go see it. Nothing else was coming out. I just went because we were going to the movies like we always do, and it was the opening of the summer season kind of thing, because this came out May of 1996, if memory serves me right. And it took everybody kind of by surprise at that point, and I walked out of it liking it a hell of a lot more than I thought I would.
By the way, Tom. Oh, actually, play the thing, Gary, and then I'll say my stuff.
Well, this is the scene. I'm not going to play the audio with Tom Cruise. Tell me which one is him.
Well, one's Bon Jovi and one's Tom Cruise. Yeah.
That was Tom.
What?
Oh my God, that hair.
Wait a minute. What?
So that was Emilio Estevez.
That's Emilio Estevez.
No,
there.
this
That
one.
is-
Isn't this one Tom? That was Tom.
He's the one at the front.
I think he's one of the other guys on the other side.
That's supposed to...
So go back to the beginning.
Oh, okay. So that was Tom Cruise in the first part. Okay. So here's Bon Jovi then. Yeah.
But yeah, no, Tom, I have talked to some people who are, like involved with like movie financing and whatnot, or at least Silicon Valley types. And they're starting to get a lot more interested in the independent productions and a lot. So right now, what we got going on is
Tom Cruise.
That's Tom.
No, go to the Union soldiers that were
I
in a row.
recognize his nose and his eyes right there now.
You're missing him. The Union soldiers that were all like down, sitting all in a row, firing. There was a bunch of soldiers. It's just a few
but I
seconds after this.
think that's him there, because that's
That
what they
is
freeze
him.
frame on.
I'm telling you, that's him. I'm not freezing it. That's them. He froze it there.
That's
to
my
show
point.
you.
Yeah.
And so when we get to the other scene with Bon Jovi, they do a freeze frame at the beginning too to show you which one is him, and that's him in the scene.
Oh yeah, that's definitely Bon Jovi. I remember him in the movie.
And he did the song, didn't he?
Yeah, Blaze of Glory for the second one.
The whole soundtrack.
The whole
Which
soundtrack.
is
yeah.
made just
His
that
first
alone
solo
made it
album.
worth avoiding
Shut up, Brian.
Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
I heard
That
his
was-
restaurant tanked, that it couldn't afford to
pretty
stay
sure it
open. Pay what you can afford. and it
Has
didn't
any
work.
of these movie stars, whenever they started a restaurant, actually had it worked out, other than
A
like
few do when they
Like
do it
Treehouse
correctly.
Tacos.
His idea was to make a restaurant where people could
it's
come
like
in.
Kenny
and pay
Rogers
what they
Chicken
can
was for
afford.
a while, but I think that went under too.
Kenny Rogers Chicken.
Magic Johnson's chicken. I forget what his restaurant's called.
Yeah.
Roy
You might get
Rogers,
AIDS,
man,
though.
he died too. That was like one of my
AIDS.
favorite roast beef sandwich places.
Yeah. Was it? I think, yeah, it was. Magic Johnson, like, was it Roscoe's? He bought a bunch of them or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know,
I'm
man.
trying to remember.
Crazy shit. Crazy.
But I think overall with it, I think we're in the throes of the death of whatever the hell we've been going through the last couple of years. And especially like for the strike, like whatever's coming up post all the strike stuff going on, it's going to be a completely different Hollywood. I think that the money people have seen the writing on the wall. I mean, BlackRock ESG stuff is just like, just boom, the diversity officers are gone, but their damage that did for like the last couple of years for the next couple movies coming out, it's still going to be there. So 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to see how much things have changed.
Hopefully for the better. This is something that, I mean, it's why Keith and I started our show, to help talk about it and tell people, expect better. You know, we run into too many people who are, you know, what some people call normies that just don't care. They'll watch anything and go, oh, I enjoyed that. It's like, you didn't catch that the writing was really bad in that? No, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. No,
There was pictures on the screen and they moved. Lights flashed. Noises happened.
Here,
I thought it was great.
Because there are people that actually think Kurtzman's Trek is good. We know somebody.
We've had people on this channel that think it's.
Yeah, that's what I just said. We have people on our show that thinks that, and it just Keith and I just sort of do this, Tom. It's really funny. He'll say something, we'll go, what?
If all you eat is McDonald's, like going to Dairy Queen seems like a step up.
Yeah, that's how you should grill out. McDonald's should be how every burger tastes.
Well, one day, perhaps, when we reach the demolition man stage of our society, yes, all fast food, will be and taste the same.
Yeah, because I got to tell you, and I know Brian will agree with me, you've not had haggis until you've had vegan haggis.
Yeah,
What?
Which was pointless. I mean, what is the point of that?
Vegan haggis?
Where do they get the intestines? Where do they get the intestines of a vegetable to do that?
They'll synthesize them. It'll turn out to give them cancer because it's some sort of organism that devours the matter around it as it goes through your system.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, Tom, would you be willing to pop on after you see it and
Mission Impossible 7?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're gonna be live at that point. Because I'll be getting back.
When are you gonna go see it?
I'm going to see it Monday night, 7:00 my time, so I won't be getting back here till probably. Well, the movie's like 2 hours plus.
Maybe you can pop on Wednesday or
maybe
next Friday.
Because I mean, at some point maybe when you're doing.
You don't have to come out of the whole show. Just
I won't be back here till like late Monday night, and then I'm gonna jump right into.
We'll save it for Friday. Have you on?
I think Mikey and I and a couple of the other guys who are going to see it, I think, are going to do a stream. But then,
Well, I've just bought my tickets for my ticket for Tuesday, so I'm going Tuesday.
It technically opens wide Tuesday, but there's some Monday showings. If you're lucky, you can check your local theaters, see if there's still one open. A lot of them have been selling out. The one I have here nearby me still hasn't sold out, luckily yet. But I did get tickets already. So
there wasn't a Monday show in my theater.
Yeah, I mean, you might have to look elsewhere. Like you might have to travel to find it because it's usually like one select theater in an area kind of thing.
Yeah, I can wait a day.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. I'm just saying for those who are concerned about it, like, you want to see it Monday night.
COVID destroyed Hollywood Theater downtown. It was a big, Cineplex.
Yeah,
and they closed. The coof killed them. It's sad. We had a lot of theaters here in town, and now we have less.
Well, our local theater sold to B&B theaters.
I like B&B.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
I also, like the B&B owns Ritz, right? In Lebanon, as I recall. Yeah, the B&B. Good chain. They're out of Kansas City. Good sound. I like their theaters.
They're out of Sykeston.
Is it Sykeston? I thought they were out of Kansas City.
No, that's B&B started in Sykeston.
No shit.
I think it was Sykeston.
So I guess I'll ask, which of these Mission Impossible movies are you guys' favorite? I'm kind of partial to 4 myself.
I'm going to have to stay out of this one. I'm sure I would have picked one either way. So,
well, after you watch them all, I'd like to know which one you thought was the best one.
Well, that's going to probably be a part of my review at the end of the day is getting the crash course in them. It's a 20-year-old franchise, basically, or 20, almost 30-year-old franchise at this point.
Salisbury, not Sykeston.
Oh, Salisbury. Okay.
Yeah.
I got to say for mine, oddly, number 3 is my favorite. Number 1 is my next favorite. And number 2 is not on the list.
There is no number 2. Only number 1.
That's a callback to Austin Powers. So, but anyway, we're done.
Tough
Any last thoughts, anybody, before we go?
No, not really. On my part, anyway.
When Tom Cruise dies, so will old Hollywood.
There's still other actors like him. There still are.
Yeah, but I see what he's saying. I mean, Because really,
But
anybody after Tom
he's
Cruise,
the biggest star. That's
like we
that.
didn't, we had a bunch after that are still around, but they don't really have the same shine they used to. And I
mean,
agree with that. He's kind of part of that last vestige of old school Hollywood. Yeah.
Yeah, Harrison Ford has fallen as a movie star. Just fallen.
Oh no, Harrison Ford couldn't sell a movie if he wanted to now.
hell, I love Keanu, but Keanu is a star. Yeah, as you said, Gary, Tom Cruise is a superstar.
You know, I would have suggested that Harrison Ford couldn't necessarily sell a movie even back in the day. Certain roles he could sell. But there's other movies he made like Mosquito Coast that nobody really gave a shit
Well,
about.
he had his Witness though, and he had a lot of movies for a while there. That I'm not saying he didn't have some misses, but there was a while there where I've said the argument before. The thing that's funky for Harrison, considering how much he hates Han Solo. Han Solo is the only reason he's the #1 grossing star of the 1980s.
Yep.
Because if you take Empire and Jedi out of the equation, since he's technically not the star, Eddie Murphy beats him by a long shot.
Yeah.
But it's because of those two movies that he beats everybody else, and Eddie Murphy's the only one who comes close. But that's because he also had a string of hits like you wouldn't believe, from 48 Hours all the way through Coming to America, that all grossed well over $100+ million back in the 80s, which was insane.
What was the film?
Harrison had quite a few hits.
What was the film that derailed Eddie? Was that Pluto Nash?
Pluto Nash.
Oh, eventually, yeah. But I mean, at first it was he kind of just fell off in the early 90s. He had a couple of
because in the 90s, I only remember Boomerang.
Well, Beverly Hills Boomerang was probably his last hit in that era. Because then he had
Cop 3 didn't help.
Yeah, Beverly Hills Cop 3, Vampire in Brooklyn, all those he did in like kind of an order. Metro.
Dave hurt him too.
And then he started doing the kids movies, which he did Nutty Professor, Dr. Dolittle. That kind of hit a roadblock with movies like Pluto Nash and Dave. Then he stepped back from that into doing the more serious stuff, and he kind of made a comeback with like Dreamgirls, and more recently with Dolomite. But we'll see how he does with Beverly Hills Cop 4 this fall.
I'm hoping that he has a good comeback.
I've heard mixed on it. Like I've actually talked to somebody who's seen the movie. They told me, full disclosure, they hadn't really watched the first movies in years. But they actually got invited to a test screening for the movie. And they're like, the fans are going to love all the cameos and stuff like that. The storyline though is kind of meh, because it's about Axel being, he's a father to a kid that he had with, I believe it's supposed to be.
So they're taking the plot from the
sort of, but it's pilot. A daughter, and she's married to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I believe, and he is actually a cop. And I don't know if she's a cop or not.
I like Levitt; he's a good actor.
But they said that, like, there's some great stuff with Eddie, great stuff with the old cast and cameos. But she has a bunch of scenes where they're trying to do like Axel Foley scenes with her, and they don't land.
You know what they could do as a really kind of cruel joke? That the reason Detroit went to shit so much is because Axel Foley caused so much damage over the years. He blew police. It's like, Axel, we don't have money to the cops anymore. What the fuck did you do?
Yeah, we got defunded.
Even though he's directing now, we've still got Clint Eastwood from old Hollywood.
Yeah, but he's retiring now, isn't he? I think I read that.
I think he's doing one more movie. I think
he's 93, and he's he's.
Well, I think the way it's set up right now, he'll be like 95 when his last movie premieres. I think is the whole point. I could be wrong.
Okay. I joked with my dad once when he was still around. I said, Clint's probably going to live forever. I said, I'll die before him. That guy's just going to keep going, just to spite people that hate him.
Clint will be there with Keith Richards in the apocalypse.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Let me.
Clint's too stubborn to die, and Keith Richards is just too chemically saturated.
Yeah, he's so full of chemicals that he can't die. I want to thank everybody that watched the show today. Anima Confusa, War Monkey, Scribe Light, Slasher Fred, Penny, E. Clay Thomason, Read by Nature, Peter Vinkman Fansite, aka Vinkman's Girl, FKHC 2005, aka Tim, Monkey Jeebus. This is a House of Monkeys today. Look at that. Monkey Jeebus. Glenn Fleming, Keely Chow, Andre Enrico, Small Time Republic, our good friend Zax, Kyle, Andy Morrow. We had a couple of limeys here today. Sean Estep, Sander Hammerslag, Dragon Ruse, Marks 47, and Joe's Atmosphere, Parrot Head, and Alex Moore, and of course Soul Assassin. Last one to drop in. I want to thank you guys for sticking around watching the show. I hope everybody had a good time. Tom, did you enjoy talking about it today?
Yeah, I was taking a little bit of a chance because I hadn't seen the movie in a long time. I wasn't exactly kind of being like, I don't really want to go see this new one, but I got lucky to go see it Monday, and Andre encouraged me to push me to go. So I was like, all right, I do have the first 6 films on 4K. I just haven't opened them or watched them yet. So I'm like, I guess I might as well crack back into them and get them. And I enjoyed the first film, so I said, I'm just dreading getting over that hump of the second film. And I know everybody's like, skip it. I'm like, no, I can't. I got to see these. I want to make sure, because that's going to be part of my going into this film is talking about how I felt about all of them as a whole, because I'll be seeing them back to back. So I'll kind of be able to.
Well, no matter what, you're going to have to mention how the second film doesn't fit in any way. Yeah. It really doesn't.
And at the end of the day, if I can say, oh yeah, you can ultimately skip it, then great. But I can't, just because it's my job.
It's your job.
Have a lot of
Tom, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to watch all the Mission Impossible movies.
Before you go to see
MI7. Will self-destruct.
The hand that you see light the fuse in the TV series was the creator, Geller.
Ah,
that was
cool.
His hands. I always thought that was a cool little bit of trivia. But anyway, hope everybody has a great Saturday. Thanks for sticking around with us and talking about Mission Impossible and all the other shit we talked about too. It's just fun. We're nerds and it's ADD theater, man. Have a great Saturday. Brian, thanks for being here. Tom, as always, thanks for being here. John, thanks, buddy. Martin, thanks for being the right side of my brain. Shinatsky, thanks, Ben. And Stephen. Stephen?
Yes, sir.
There you go. Just want to make sure you're there, buddy.
Yep.
So where can people find you?
Those sons of bitches. Ma, I'm doing a show.